Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 9 of What If Naruto Was the Black Dragon of Apocalypse in Fairy Tail. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content, and also go and support the author, link in description. Screonk. Acnologia roared as he soared towards Gadora, with the golden hydra flying down to him as well. The black and gold dragons slam into one another as a gust of wind blew outwards from their collision. Naruto asked. Kokuten. The two reptilian behemoths reared back as they regarded each for a moment. Suddenly, the two spread their wings out as they flew upwards into the night sky. The two continued to fly up the heavens until they reached right above the clouds, the crimson moon shining brightly above them as they glared at one another. A split moment later, the two dash at one another. As they were at arm's length, the two side heads of Gadora shot forward to chomp on Naruto, but the Dragon King quickly thrusts his arms forward and catches the two heads at the start of their long necks. The middle head rears its head back before bellowing out a lightning bolt, but Acnologia manages to swiftly tilt his head to dodge the bolt. The black dragon begins charging mana into his right foot as the Ethernano condensed into a familiar sphere. Naruto quickly pulls Gadora closer and roars, Rasengan. The spiraling sphere is slammed into Gadora's abdomen. Gadora grunts as he was sent flying back as the sphere exploded and engulfed his entire body. However, Naruto knew this fight would not be that easy. He was proven right as lightning flew out of the explosion, with Naruto swiftly dodging several of the bolts that came out of the smoke cloud. When the dust cleared, there stood Gadora without a scratch on its body. Its middle head reared up as it regarded Naruto. To think a former human would prove to be an opponent for someone such as myself. How amusing. The middle Gadora head growled in amusement and annoyance. Naruto raised an eyebrow at his opponent. Oh. You finally decided to open your jaws and speak, Gadora. He mocked. The three heads snorted. I acknowledge you as my enemy, Acnologia. And I shall crush you. Naruto growled. At least we can agree on something. The two dragons rushed towards one another once again. Naruto reached Gadora first due to his slightly smaller size. He rears his arm back and lands a right hook to the jaw of the middle head. Naruto quickly follows up with a Kuryukyaku devil dragon kick. Gadora quickly ducked under the magically coated leg and slams his body into Naruto's gut. The blonde king stumbled a bit but grabbed hold of Gadora's middle neck. The golden hydra released an electrical discharge, but Naruto gritted through the pain as he used his incredible physical strength to flip Gadora over his head and sent him flying in the opposite direction. Naruto charges mana into his leg, tail, and arms. He launches another devil dragon kick followed by an energy slash from his tail, and finally forming two large Rasengans and hurling them towards Gadora. Gadora had quickly regained its balance just as Naruto fired his string of attacks. The golden-scaled kaiju charged both of its spiked tails with lightning and quickly deflected the kick attack and slash, before launching two lightning bolts from its side heads to counterattack the two Rasengans as the attacks blew up. Naruto raises his arm and gathered his magical energy to form a large spinning disc. Kenzan. Naruto shouts as he hurls the disc of Ethernano. Gadora merely scoffed at the attack as he expected something better from Acnologia. As he prepared to blast the disc away, Gadora had failed to notice Acnologia's malicious smirk. Just as Gadora fired off his lightning bolts, Naruto closed his hand into a fist. The moment he did, the Kenzan broke into numerous small Kenzans. Gadora was taken aback as the Kenzans began surrounding him as they cut several areas around his body. Naruto growls out a sigh. He quickly focuses his mana into the tips of his fingers, toes, and stinger. Soon several Rasengan began forming on each tip. Naruto quickly rears his claws and tail before hurling the multiple Rasengans as they began to enlarge to about 1/4 the size of Naruto's dragon body as they began orbiting around Gadora. Acnologia quickly charges his magical energy into 6 different parts of his body. The black dragon roars as he fires several destruction lasers from his clawed hands and feet, tail, maw, and eyes. Gadora glared at the incoming beams and Rasengans about to collide into him. He would show this king that he would not fall so easily. The kaiju's eyes glowed golden with electricity. He releases an enormous electrical shockwave pulse that destroys the Kenzans and Rasengans. The pulse continued to expand like a large barrier with Gadora at the center as the destruction lasers slammed into the enlarging pulse. Naruto and Gadora both continued to pour more magical power into their attacks, but the stalemate continued as their attacks grew more powerful with discharges of blue and yellow lightning erupting in several directions from the overload of power being generated by the two sides. Finally, the stalemate ended as the energy collision was too much and a bright explosion erupted from the center of the two attacks. The skies were completely illuminated in a brilliant white flash that nearly resembled daylight for a minute or so before dying down. As the night sky returned to normal, Naruto and Gadora were still standing completely fine as they glared at another. Naruto was shaking. Not in fear, but excitement. It had been centuries since he felt a battle like this. One that rapidly pumped blood through his veins. The rapid beats of his heart pulsating through his eardrums. The last time he felt a fight like this was a very long time ago. But now he was finally facing someone else that could actually push him to fight at his best. Naruto let out a bellowing roar as his tribal markings began to glow again. The joy of fighting a worthy opponent. Oh, how he missed this feeling. Guildarts and Fairy Tail gave him small doses, but this is what he was waiting for. By the look on Gadora's faces, he felt the same. The golden retaliated as it screeched as golden lightning danced around its body, more specifically, its three necks. The two continued to gaze at one another as their magical energy began to build within their maws glowing with ethernano. Finally, both roared their signature attacks. Hakai no Hoko. Gravity beams. For Naruto, he launched a massive sky blue beam of Etherian, while Gadora launched three large, pale beams of yellow electricity. Time seemed to slow as the two attacks slowly approached one another. As the attacks finally collided, as everything went quiet as a bright flash envelops the two dragons. Ka-boom. The silence was replaced with a massively loud explosion that erupts from the collision of the two attacks. The bright white explosion expands outwards throughout the area as it lights up the sky for several seconds and causing several mages and dragons to pause in their actions and look up to the bright, white flash. Soon enough, the light began to fade, and Naruto was beginning to regain his sight. However, the moment he regained enough of his sight, he was greeted by the sight of Gadora flying right towards him. Naruto had no time to move as the golden kaiju slammed into him as the two go sailing down towards the ground. Naruto tries to struggle to release himself as he looks down to see that they were on a collision course with a maroon-colored dragon and the mages fighting the dragon. The two landed on top of the dragon, completely crushing it under their combined weight as the area is covered by a cloud of smoke and dust. Go aim Ost. Old rivals. As the dust settled, Acnologia and Gadora were struggling against one another with the two side heads curling around Acnologia's arms with the middle head in a growling match with him. Acnologia. Naruto's ears twitched as he was aware of who was just a few feet away observing his fight. He noticed that Gadora was not paying any attention to them, which was good for him. He couldn't worry about fighting Gadora and protecting the others. Acnologia quickly shoves Gadora back as he skidded a few feet away. The two were in a standoff as they glared at one another. A low humming growl rose out of Naruto's throat as the two lunged forward. Naruto quickly tilts his head as the left head tried to chomp on Naruto's neck. The black dragon quickly retaliates with a swift swipe of his claws onto the left Gadora head's cheek. The left head screeched in pain as it felt some blood oozing out of the wound. The middle head of the kaiju dragon fired a point-blank lightning bolt at Acnologia, but the black dragon once again managed to dodge it and hit the right head with a left cross as it tried to chomp down on his right forearm. Naruto followed up with a right cross to hit the middle head, but the middle head smirked as he swirled around the fist before bit down on his arm. Naruto roars in pain as he tried to rip the middle head off, but the other two heads curled around his other arm and chest and also chomped down on vulnerable areas of flesh. Naruto gritted his teeth in pain as he continued to struggle as he tried to force the heads off of him. His eyes widened as he felt his strength began to disappear. He looks to see blue energy go down all three necks of Gadora. This bastard was stealing his mana. However, before Naruto could do anything, lightning danced around the Gadora heads before Naruto started feeling his entire body get electrocuted. Naruto roared in pain as he lost his focus to struggling against his ensnarement. Using this distraction, the lead Gadora wrapped himself around Acnologia's throat and began to squeeze along with the other two. Naruto could feel the air leave his lungs and his body began to go numb. Spit, bile, and foam began to bubble out of his mouth as his vision began to darken. Tou-san. Naruto's eyes snapped open as he heard his daughter screaming at him. He narrowed his eyes. He would not be beaten so easily. He turned his eye to see Gadora turning his attention to their spectators. Oh hell no. Gadora will not go anywhere near his kin. Meanwhile, Gadora had turned his attention to their spectators and planned to blast them with a gravity beam. The Golden Hydra smirked as he saw the humans attempt to defend themselves. Gadora, however, had to forget his fun as he began to screech in pain from the scorching heat it was receiving from his tangled opponent. The three heads uncoiled as they jumped back to glare at Acnologia, who looked like his body was composed of blue and white flames. Naruto's beady eyes glowed red as he glared at the golden kaiju. You will not touch them. We shall see. Gadora mocked in amusement as it spread his wings and flew back into the air. Naruto put out the flames as he unraveled his black wings as he slightly glanced back at his spectators. What the hell are you waiting for? Get out there and help the others. Tell them exactly what I am going to say. Keep fighting and stay out of my fight. Hi! Everyone exclaimed. Naruto nodded. Good. Naruto then soars back into the air to face his opponent again. As Naruto approached Gadora, he tried firing another breath attack to damage its wings, but the kaiju managed to evade the attack. Gadora reared his three heads back and fired his gravity beams that quickly coiled around Acnologia's wings, arms, and neck. The Golden Hydra raised his three heads and caused Naruto to rise above him as Gadora whipped his heads and sent Naruto sailing through the air and crashing into the empty GMG stadium. Naruto slammed through the walls as he landed harshly on the sandy ground as the crumbled walls of the stadium buried him. Gadora stared at the crumbled remains as he rose higher into the air. He knew very well Acnologia would not be defeated by that. Suddenly several of the other rogue dragons that were not fighting the mages were flying towards Naruto's location. Gadora had to scoff at their actions. Did these fools think they stood a chance against Acnologia? Utter fools. The middle head muttered. Hey. They are all going to die. The left head giggled in amusement. The middle head bit the left head in annoyance. Shut it. The middle ordered. No fighting, please. We must stay in unison. The right head lectured. The left shook its head, while the middle rolled its eyes. Hi, whatever. The two heads said in unison. Meanwhile, the several man-eating dragons had surrounded the rubble of the GMG stadium as they charge up their signature attacks. Hit him with everything you have. This is our chance. If we manage to kill him, then together we can kill Gadora. And with those two dead, a new Dragon King can rise. Suddenly the group saw a bright blue glow begin to flash beneath the rubble. Before the dragons could ponder any further, several destruction beams shot out of the rubble and pierced all the dragons in multiple vital areas. The rubble began to get pushed away as Naruto rose from the rubble with an annoyed expression as he looked at the dragons he had impaled. You filthy disgusting lizards have the gall to try and ambush me. Do you think of me as some greenhorn dragon that some rubble would stop me? Know your place beneath your king, mongrels. Naruto commanded the beams to cut through all of the dragons that had been impaled as their bloody chunks fell to the ground. The blonde Dragon King turned to see an amused Gadora looking down at him. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he extended his wings as he rose into the air, following his kaiju opponent until the two stopped in the center of a large cumulonimbus cloud. I'm glad to see you up again, Acnologia. The middle head answered. It would be such a shame if our battle ended so soon. The left head teased. It has been a long time since we have found such a powerful opponent. Please continue to entertain us, Acnologia. The right head answered. Acnologia growled as he gave Gadora a fanged smile. I wouldn't worry so much, Gadora. You may have enjoyed the first round, but let's see how you handle round 2. Yes indeed. The three heads said in unison. Suddenly several more dragons appeared as they surrounded the two dragons. Both Gadora and Acnologia growled in annoyance at the interruption to their fight. I hope you have a solution to this interference, Acnologia. I doubt flying higher would do any good. Naruto Shippuden asked. Crimson flames. Naruto continued to glare at the dragons and Gadora. Suddenly, Gadora and the dragons began to hear a dark, malicious laugh erupt out of Acnologia's mouth. Oh, don't worry, Naruto said as he gave them a dark smirk. I have the perfect spell to take care of them and give you some entertainment. That is if you can survive. Gadora began to laugh in amusement. And what kind of spell is that? The three heads asked in unison. Naruto's magical aura began to envelop his entire body as he began to part the clouds and revealing the starry sky above. Simple. I will give you and these mongrels the privilege of seeing one of my secret spells. This caused Gadora to narrow his eyes. Dragons were creatures of incredible power. Their bodies expelled magical energy. A single spell attack could crush mountains with ease. Secret spells technically existed before even the idea of dragon slayers crossed Naruto's puny human mind. They were the strongest attacks that all dragons had and only used when absolutely necessary. They were, for the most part, used to utterly destroy a dragon's enemy. One spell alone could eradicate an army if necessary. However, Naruto was an interesting case. He was a human that became a relatively powerful mage. For a human, anyway. But then the brat created Dragonslayer magic and got stronger. And as he killed more, he grew more and more powerful until he reached the highest echelon of a normal dragon's power. He obtained the power of the Dragon King. Something unheard of. The idea of any human reaching the strength of a Dragon King was simply impossible. However, Naruto proved those claims wrong. Most dragons at minimum have 5 secret spells and a max of around 7 spells. However, as Naruto is no ordinary dragon, he may have more than 7 secret spells in his arsenal. Gadora was cut from his musings as Naruto's magical pressure had reached its peak. Naruto gave his enemies a psychotic grin as he began to cackle with his tribal markings glowing a bright blue. It had been so long since he had to use the secret spells. He rarely used them and usually only used the secret spells of other attributes. He would only use his secret spells against someone truly powerful or someone that he wanted to utterly kill. The last time he technically used them was when he demonstrated a few to Wendy. However, he only showed her a few that were the least devastating, which wasn't saying much. All of his secret spells were devastating as one alone could easily eradicate the capital of Fury with ease. Now he was about to use the spell that made him infamous around all of Earthland. That spell that allowed him to wipe out all life in an entire country in a single night. He raised his head and looked at the blood-red moon with glowing white eyes and roared, "Filthy, mongrels! Vanish into extinction! Eternal flare!" Suddenly several of the stars in the sky glowed before several meteorites began to descend from the heavens and straight towards Gadora and the other dragons. Gadora managed to quickly form an electric pulse barrier to protect himself. Gadora shook within the barrier as the bright meteors slammed in it. The shield is maintaining, but I am still feeling the impact from the meteors. This is an impressive spell. Then again, I shouldn't expect anything less from him. Unfortunately, the dragons in the air and down in the capital were not as lucky as they were all easily stuck and either injured or instantly killed. However, the dragons that were not the only thing injured. Large portions of the capital were destroyed by the spell and caused fires to spread all around the city with smoke rising into the air. The landscape around the capital was also turned into a hellish wasteland of black ash and bright orange flames. Gadora looked down at the destruction caused by Acknowledgia's spell. He noticed though that only the dragons attacking the humans were injured, none of the humans were harmed by his attack. Gadora looked back at his opponent. I must admit that was impressive, Acknowledgia. That spell was quite devastating. Though I doubt that was the spell's full power. Still, the power you showed was impressive. You managed to kill all the dragons that had surrounded us and several of the ones below. Yet no human was harmed. Acknowledgia snorted. Did you think I don't have control of my spell, that I don't know what I want to target? Please. I have complete control over all my spells and they only harm who I want it to. However, for the more destructive spells, I take precautions. The enchantment. The right head realized. It protected all of them. The left head giggled out. Acknowledgia nodded. Indeed. The black dragon then glared at Gadora. But I think we should back to our business, you golden abomination. Gadora's head smirked. Yes indeed. Gadora's body began to glow gold as lightning began to erupt out of his body and began to dance around the clouds around them. The clouds began to converge and swirl around them as more lightning continued to be released out of the golden hydra's body and dancing around the now giant hurricane, consuming the two. Acnologia gave a fanged smirk. Oh. So you want to create a storm, Gadora. Well, two can play this game. Suddenly a pale blue-white aura covers Naruto's body as the clouds began to grow and converge around them even more as bluish-white and yellow lightning began to dance around them. Naruto continues to laugh maliciously as his aura grew fiercer along with the artificial magical storm. This spell was based on a story that Kurama told him. The tale of the Jubi, the original form of all the Biju and the primordial beast of the elemental nations. The creature could destroy continents and create devastating storms on a whim. Thus came the inspiration for this attack. To remember his past as the last descendant of Kagaya Otsutsuki and to show this world both his fearsome power and the power of the old world he came from. Gadora's eyes narrowed as he felt the incredible power Acnologia was releasing. Gadora retailed by increasing the power output of the storm he began, but Naruto countered by releasing even more power as the two were locked in a stalemate of power as the storm got stronger. The two continued to unleash more power as their opposing lightning clashed against one another as the two auras grew fiercer. Naruto smirks as he releases the apex of his power and roars. Taste the power that was once wielded by a primordial beast Gadora. Tenpenchii, natural disaster befalling heaven and earth. A bright blue flash erupted out of Naruto just as Gadora erupted in a huge yellow flash. The two flashes collided as they fused to create a bright white flash as several F1 to F2 tornadoes formed and tore through the capital and most of the landscape surrounding it in giant bolts of lightning flying downward. Finally, a final blast flashed through the sky and slammed into the center of the capital. When the light faded, Naruto was still in his dragon form as his body was still covered in a white aura. He looked to see Gadora was not harmed by the attack, except for some scratches and wounds all over his body, but they were slowly healing. The minor injuries Naruto felt were slowly fading as well. Naruto took a glance to see that the crater form from their two attacks was being filled with water and several of the tornadoes formed were dying down. He also noticed that the storm clouds were gone, but there were still plenty of clouds that obscured the two and most of the night sky. Naruto Ost. Chain Explosion Part 1. Naruto turns his attention back to Gadora. The two glare at one another before they once more dashed towards the other. As the two were just a few feet from one another, Acnologia reared his head back before launching a roar attack to Gadora's middle head. Gadora's head managed to maneuver away from the blast. He quickly retaliated with a tail strike, but Naruto quickly leaned back to dodge the attack. The black dragon reared his arms back and clapped them together. As soon as the two limbs connected, a sonic boom erupted from the hands and rippled across Gadora's body. The golden hydra let out a screech of pain as he shook his three heads. When the three looked back at their opponent, they could tell something was wrong. There were several Acnologia and they were all spinning. Gadora tried to shake the dizziness off, but that was proving to be easier said than done. Naruto took this opportunity and grabbed Gadora's left head with his arm as Naruto charged his mana into his other hand and formed another Rasengan. With a mighty roar, Acnologia slammed the ball of Ethernano into the base of the left Gadora's neck. The three heads screeched in pain as the sphere grind and ripped through the scales, muscles, nerves, and bones around the neck and collar of the left head before it was finally ripped apart. The still disoriented heads tried to attack, but Naruto smacks the skulls of the two heads by using the severed Gadora head like a club. With the two heads distracted, Naruto discarded the severed head as he changed his forearms into a pair of dark silver drills. Tetsuryu no Doriru Iron Dragon's drills. Naruto thrust both of his drill arms into the sides of Gadora's abdomen. The golden hydra was once more screeching in pain as it felt the iron drills piercing through his scales and beginning to pierce the skin. However, Gadora was not an opponent to be underestimated at any time. The two heads shook their heads as they finally regained their bearings and released out of their dizziness. The two heads glared down at Naruto. Gadora raised his two spiked tails and slammed them onto Naruto's skull. The black dragon flinched from the force of the attack as it was now his turn to be disoriented. Taking this opportunity, Gadora lifted his two legs and slammed two fierce frontal kicks into Acnologia's chest. Naruto coughed as he was sent back a bit as his drill arms came out of Gadora's sides. The middle head reared back and fired off a large gravity beam that landed on the center of Acnologia's chest as the other head unleashed a torrent of ignited plasma that scorched Naruto's left side of his face, wing, and forearm. Naruto gritted his fangs in pain as he was sent flying down diagonally. He could feel the gravity beam piercing his chest scales and burning his vulnerable muscles. The bigger problem was from the plasma flames. Naruto could feel the left half of his body parts getting melted as the flesh was burned away. Naruto quickly extended his right wing and used it with some wind manipulation to push himself upwards and get out of the two beam attacks. Naruto growled as his wounds singed as smoke came out of them. The blonde king could feel and hear the smoldering skin bubbling around his body. His chest scales were completely blown apart, revealing vulnerable chest muscle and tissue that was scorched away, revealing black, burnt muscle tissue and tendons. However, it was Naruto's left side that suffered the most damage. That superheated plasma had incinerated away his right wing, arm, and leg. The three appendages had been completely eradicated and left those wounds cauterized with black and red burnt muscle sealing the wounds. The left side of his face was completely melted, leaving nothing but bone and small scorched muscle tissue on the burnt bones. His eyeball had exploded from the extreme heat, leaving a gaping socket with white liquid dripping down like tears from the skull. Hell, the only reason he was not plummeting down was because of him using his wind magic to keep himself floating. Naruto was cut from his musing as he was slammed by a surprise attack from Gadora. Before the black dragon could retaliate, he felt something from his connection to the enchantment he cast. He focused on the abnormality and found it was coming from Ultir. His single eye widens before it narrowed in annoyance. He did not have the time to deal with this bullshit. Don't even think about it. What? Don't even think about casting that spell. Naruto. How the hell are you talking to me right now? Before Naruto could respond, Gadora was right above him and was about to strike with his tails, if Naruto had not been able to barely catch the attack with right arm. Naruto gritted his teeth in anger and suppressed pain. I am speaking to you with great difficulty while trying to fight a kaiju. Gadora raised his eyebrows in confusion. What could Acnologia accomplish in his condition? Naruto gave a hardened glare with his half-burnt face to his enemy. He raised his scorched arm and gave a slight growl. Suddenly, a geyser of blood erupted out of the torched limb. Gadora was left stunned at just what was Naruto planning. Then to the kaiju's astonishment, the blood morphed into the shape of a spiked thorn whip. Ketsukiryu no Toge Muchi, Blood Dragon's Thorn Whip. Naruto struck a fierce slash that pushed Gadora back. He then morphed his blood whip into a giant fist. He reared the giant appendage back as Gadora reared his middle head back. Ketsukiryu no Hoken, Blood Dragon's Breakdown Fist. Gravity Beam. The two attacks collided as they created a blood-red mist cloud that enveloped the two dragons. So I am going to keep this brief. While the spell you plan to cast would be able to reverse time, the price would be too high. You would move back time back maybe 1 minute. That's it, and it would cost you all of your remaining years of life. So I am ordering you. Do not cast that spell, understood? Naruto sighed as Ultir said she understood. Good, and cut the connection. Good lord, he felt like a parent lecturing their child. He might be signing more than a few papers after tonight it seems, he mused. Naruto shook his head as he focused back on his fight as the blood-red mist dissipated with Gadora looking no worse for wear. The two glared at one another in silence before Gadora began to chuckle. Naruto was going to ask what he found so amusing until he saw something. The collar of the left head was bubbling as a mass of flesh and liquid rose out. It grew until it was the same length as the other two heads as muscle and tissue grew as flesh-pink skin covered the muscle. Finally, golden scales grew as the new head completely regenerated. The left head shook his head before getting his bearing and focusing on Acnologia. The left head began to laugh in amusement. Why hello again, Acnologia. The left head cheered. I see you're trying a new look. It suits you. Naruto growled, of course you can regenerate your heads. What would you have us do? Leave the head missing. The left head shook. That would be terrible. Plus there's no symmetry to having only two heads. The middle bit the right horn of the left head. You're talking too much. The middle head growled in irritation. Oh come on. That's part of the fun. The left head whined. The only fun I want is this black lizard begging for mercy. The middle head retorted as he shifted his eyes to Acnologia. I will die before that happens. Naruto snarled in annoyance. Well, that can be arranged. The right head replied before turning to the two bickering heads. Now if you two are quite done arguing. No, yes. The middle and left heads said, simultaneously. Naruto shook his head at the spectacle. He had forgotten about the unique personalities that each Gadora head had and the constant bickering between the three heads. He always wondered how those three heads could cooperate at all. It was still amusing to see, despite the current situation at hand. Naruto growled as his body glowed green as black and blue miasma erupted out of the damaged limbs before they regenerated into a new arm, leg, and wing. His face was soon enveloped in steam as muscle tissue began covering bone again. A new eyeball grew as skin now covered the muscle and new black scales grew to cover the face. Naruto shook his head as he tested his new regenerated limbs as he was back to normal. Satisfied, he turned to see an amused Gadora watching him. Well, now we are back to square one. The right head groaned. Feels like we completely wasted time and energy trying to rip each other's limbs. The left head quipped. If you want to beat us, Acknowledgia, you're going to have to try harder. The right head warned. And don't think we'll just stand here and do nothing. The middle head mocked. You'd be fucking arrogant to just stand there and do nothing. If I can't beat you by ripping off limbs, then I will have to beat you until you can't get up. Naruto snarled in response. The three heads laughed. Oh come now. Don't act like you're not enjoying this fight, Acknowledgia. The right head lectured. It's the most fun we've had in centuries. It would be such a shame to kill you. The left head cheered. Yes indeed, but necessary. The middle head said as Gadora's body began to glow golden. You're right, I am enjoying this. But I am on a timetable, so let's speed things up. Naruto's body also began glowing a bright blue. The two then dashed into blue and yellow blurs. The two dragons collided against one another multiple times as sonic booms with blue and yellow lightning erupting from each of their collisions. This continued for several minutes before the two separated several feet away before dashing forward to clash once more. This time the two stayed in the same spot as they fought for dominance before they were enveloped in a bright flash. When the flash dissipated, the two bright flashes were spiraling together as the two dragons continued to fight as they descended to the ground below. The two drilled into the ground, sending a quake throughout the entire capital and causing everyone to stumble from the sheer force of the land below. The behemoths continue to burrow underground until they reach a clearing they stumbled into. Naruto shakes his head as he becomes aware of his bearings. He was in the dragon graveyard. So I end up in the place where I first embraced the name of Acknowledgia. Don't know if this is irony or perhaps inevitable that I end up here again. Naruto mused as he looked at his surroundings. He had not set foot in this place for 400 years. The last time he came was when he was still fighting in the Dragon Civil War. He was trying to save one girl, but he failed and in his rage took it out on the murderers. To this day, he can still remember the words his dying enemy ranted to him. That bastard had the gall to compare him to that abomination, the Dark One. The one feared by all dragons. Now Naruto had taken many names in the past to now, but Acknowledgia was a unique case. He only accepted it because he wanted to instill fear into all his enemies when they heard his name. Even if it meant being associated with him. However, this also led to his remaining allies, except a select few, to be afraid of him as well. Both friends and enemies alike saw him as a threat. As a monster. Just like that thing. Someone that will destroy everything and everyone around them. Naruto was cut from his musings when he had to duck under a gravity beam blasting into his face. He looks up to glare at a smug Gadora standing a few feet away from him. Enjoyed your little trip down memory lane. Gadora mocked as Naruto snarled. The two side heads took a glance at their surroundings to see the numerous bones and remains of dragons surrounding the two. Were you the one that killed these dragons? Then it would be appropriate and ironic for you to die here. Naruto growled. The only one who will die here is you. He then outstretched his clawed arms as he semi-closed them. Suddenly the skeletal remains of the deceased dragons began to shake violently as the entire cavern shook from the vibrations. Gadora tensed its body for anything that could occur. Do you plan to use bone dragon slaying magic on me? Naruto smirked in response. Something like that. Suddenly the skeletal remains rose into the air as they converged into the shape of a large dragon construct that was covered in a gray and yellow aura. Gadora snorted. This is the best you can do, Acknowledgia. This is rather weak. I honestly expected more from you. Naruto gave a scoff at the three-headed kaiju. Talk your trash after you have beaten it, kaiju. The bone construct lunged forward as Gadora continued to look unimpressed. The golden dragon raised its three heads and fired three gravity beams to the construct. However, to its surprise, the bone creature absorbed the bolts as they all converged into the maw of the construct as it fired the bolts right back. Gadora quickly wrapped his wings around himself as the gravity beams collided into him. The kaiju gritted its teeth as it felt the force of his attack. Something that annoyed the golden hydra, something fierce. Gadora screeched in rage as it repelled the bolts. The construct reared its arm and thrust forward, but the middle Gadora head fires a gravity beam to immobilize the construct from moving further. The two side heads then fire a massive torrent of hot plasma that melts the construct. Gadora turned its attention back to Acnologia, only to find him gone. Suddenly Naruto appears right in front of Gadora with two bone stakes coming out of his wrists. The kaiju had little time to react as Naruto stabs him through the lower jaws of his two side heads and slams them back into the ground. He then proceeded to stab the two tails to keep them in place. Naruto grabs the middle head as he charged a roar attack to launch down Gadora's throat. However, Gadora's body began to glow golden yellow as the eyes of the three heads glow a bright yellow. The side heads broke free and rose themselves as the three launched gravity beams just as Naruto launched a destruction roar. The close-range collision of the attacks causes a massive eruption of power that causes the capital to shake as violent geysers of power erupts from the ground below. Suddenly one last violent shake causes the ground to rip open as a massive geyser of power erupts as Naruto and Gadora soar into the air. The two paused as they reached a suitable height in the sky. Naruto asked, "Hard battle." At a standstill again. The right head said. "Ready for round 3, Acnologia." The left head quipped. "You will fall and I will take your throne." The middle head promised. Naruto scoffed. "You won't live through this day to take the throne, Gadora." Gadora smirked as golden lightning danced around his body. The kaiju narrowed his eyes in concentration as several spheres of golden lightning formed around him. With a flick of his heads, the spheres launched towards Naruto. The black dragon responds quickly by summoning 4 kenzans, one in each hand and foot. He hurls them before spreading his wings and summoning several ethereal blades and firing them as well. However, to Naruto's surprise, the moment the discs and blades sliced the orbs, they broke up into smaller orbs and became even faster. "Fucking copycat. But I will play your game, Gadora." Naruto snarled as he created a water barrier to block and absorb the electric spheres. Thankfully, water conducts electricity. Naruto noticed that his attacks were destroyed by a pulse blast from Gadora. The blonde king raises his arm as the electrified water swirled around him into the shape of a large whirlpool. He then summoned swirls of fire, wind, ice, and pure magical energy into the swirling vortex. The vortex expanded to eclipse Naruto's dragon form, and with a flick of the wrist, the vortex swirled into the shape of a large elemental dragon. Sextuple Unison Raid. Spiraling Elemental Dragon Drill Bullet. The elemental construct roared as it flew towards Gadora. The Golden Hydra was not the least bit intimidated as it roared and released another large electrical pulse to counter the elemental drill bullet. The construct struggled to push past the pulse, but the electrical shockwave held strong as it pushed the dragon back. The two attacks struggled for several more minutes before a bright dome began to form between the two before erupting in an explosion that enveloped the two attacks. Naruto raised his arms to cover his eyes and avoiding the blinding light of the explosion. From the gaps through his fingers, he saw Gadora coming straight at him again. He was not going to be ensnared again by the kaiju. Gadora was just an arm's length away from Naruto, however as he dived down to him, Naruto turned into wisps of black and red shadows. "What?" the heads exclaimed. "Where did he go?" the middle head demanded. Behind them, the shadows merged back into the black dragon. Using his enemy's distraction, he rears his head back and roars. Suraryu no Moru Yona Hano, Soul Dragon Searing Flames. A wave of black and indigo flames erupted from Naruto's maw and enveloped Gadora's back and consuming the two side heads in flames. The Golden Hydra screeched in agony. Flames shouldn't be capable of harming him this badly. So why was he feeling so much excruciating pain? It feels like he's being ripped from the inside and out. The kaiju turned his body, just in time to see Naruto fly back and slam into him. Gadora would have tried to fire a gravity beam from the center head, if not for the fact that Naruto grabbed the middle head with his clawed foot by the throat. Gadora looked in shock as Naruto smirked at him. Just to remind you, I was raised by Thorin and Saphira. Her soul flames had two sides to them. The holy half had purification and healing properties. However, the other side of those flames has similar attributes to hellfire, causing pain to the body inside and out along with the soul. Even Atlas Flame had to watch it when facing my mother, as her flames were some of the few things that could harm him. You won't win with just this. The middle head grunted. Naruto chuckled in response. I know. Naruto smirked down as he stretched out his two arms with open palms. In the left arm, a white-bluish orb formed that had a brilliant shine similar to the moon, while the right hand formed a crimson-yellow orb that was similar to a miniature sun. He then condensed the two orbs to a size that would fit in the palm of his claws. Naruto brought the two condensed orbs together in his maw as they merged into a glowing silver orb before eating it. Gadora's eyes widened as he knew what was coming next. Nishokuryu no Hoko, Eclipse Dragon's Roar. Gadora barely manages to tilt his body away as a gigantic silver beam of mana erupted from Naruto's jaws. Gadora screeched in pain as the beam enveloped a portion of his body and flew through the air until it reached the mountain range, north to the capital. Everything was quiet as a brilliant flash of light enveloped the northern horizon. Kaboom! Before a gigantic explosion enveloped the area and completely wiped out nearly every mountain in the northern horizon. Dust and debris flew everywhere as a powerful gust of wind bellowed throughout the entire capital and blowing down several of the surrounding buildings along with the limbs and corpses of the dead dragons. When the explosion died down, Naruto looked to see Gadora was still alive. Which he expected, as the kaiju would not fall so easily. He had lost one of his heads, again, left leg, and tail. His wing was shredded, but it was still usable for flight, and his middle head had lost an eye. Naruto gave a smug grin. Guess we're even now, Gadora. Gadora growled before snorting. The middle bit down at the chunks of the damaged left head and ripped it off as a new head grew in its place, just as new limbs regrew as well. At another stalemate. The left head cheered. This is becoming rather bothersome. One of us needs to tip this stalemate. The right head exasperated. Maybe we can get Acnologia to use another secret spell on us. Let's see if that will do something. The left head suggested. Shut it, both of you. The middle head snapped at the other two. What? The left head exclaimed. You know it's true, and we know you're thinking the same thing. We share a body and our brains are connected. For once I agree with that head of yours, Naruto muttered before he paused as he sensed something within the capital. Something he had not sensed in a long time. The power of a celestial titan and a phoenix. And if he was right, at the center of those powers were Eclair and Katya. Now the connection with Katya made a lot more sense, as there was only one other stellar mage who could use the celestial titans. Oh boy, he is going to be busy when this was all over. As for Eclair, Naruto had to hold back a flinch. Now he understood why she seemed so familiar. She was a phoenix priestess, which made things a lot more complicated for him and the girl. He mentally sighed and decided to deal with that skeleton at a later date. Refocusing on Gadora, Naruto contemplated his current predicament. Most of his attacks have done some damage to Gadora. But the bastard quickly recovers from it. But there has to be a limit to how much damage he could recover from. He just needs to find the right spell to attack Gadora with. But the question is what spell he should use. He could use another secret spell with a lot more power to it. But there was an issue. If he used too much power, he could harm or even kill Gadora, but the issue would be the harm the resulting explosion would cause to the surrounding area. Enchantment or not, there will be deaths caused by his attack. On the other hand, if he used less power to avoid harming others, Gadora will just come barely unscathed, and all he would have accomplished is wasting mana. Naruto briefly glances at his opponent to see several burns still visible on the side that Gadora regenerated. That last attack left some damage despite him recovering. If that was at the dead center, then it's possible Gadora would be more severely injured. All I have to do is make sure that Gadora can't dodge. He notices two large chunks of the mountain range he just destroyed. A plan quickly formulates as he focuses back on the kaiju. Do you have a plan now, Acnologia? Acknowledgia narrowed his eyes as he created several clones that quickly charged towards Gadora. The golden monster snorted. Really? Clones? That's the best he could come up with. Either he is stalling or he has no idea what he's doing. The kaiju was pretty sure it's the former. As the clones attack Gadora, the original Acknowledgia flicks his right wrist as two large dark portals appear above two of the remaining mountains before dropping down as the mountains are enveloped by the portals. He turns his attention back to Gadora as he killed the last of his clones. Is that all you have, Acknowledgia? The middle head asked. Come now, you can do better than that. The right head lectured. Naruto shrugged as he smirked at them. As you wish. Suddenly two large dark portals appeared above and below Gadora as the mountains came out of the portals. Gadora's eyes widen before he begins laughing. Interesting idea, but this will fail. Gadora released a massive electrical pulse that destroys the two mountains with relative ease. Gadora notices that Acknowledgia had clasped his claws together. His eyes narrow as he felt something from the center of the palms. I don't know what you're planning, Acknowledgia, but I will not allow you to use it. Naruto smirked at the approaching kaiju. I can't believe the irony of me using this to stall you. But drastic times call for drastic measures. Suddenly, out of several points of Naruto's body, silver chains erupted out of his back and made a straight beeline towards Gadora. The kaiju's eyes widened as it tried to avoid the incoming attack, but it was too close to evade them as the chains ensnared several parts of his body. Gadora struggled to be released from the chains but they would not relent and he even felt himself get weaker. Were the chains suppressing his power? What is this? He turns as he hears Acknowledgia's laugh. I see you're wondering what these chains are. They are just something from my past that I never thought I would ever use. But life can handle you some interesting surprises. Which is true. Naruto never wanted to use anything that reminded him of his parents. The Rasengan was a bit of an exception as that was something he learned before learning about his heritage. However, despite his desire to not have any connection to Minato and Kushina, he still learned and uses many abilities that both of them used frequently and were even master at. The sealing arts being the most prominent skill he shares with them. And the Rasengan and chains being another set of skills he shares in common with them. And after the 7 years to think and venting out to Wendy, his hatred and prejudice against them had been cleared from his vision. So he could now objectively look at both of them without going completely berserk due to his past. He may not acknowledge the name of Uzumaki, but Kushina's blood will always flow through his veins. That is a truth that he has come to accept, along with what that entailed. If using this part of his forgotten heritage will help protect what he holds so dear, then so be it. Naruto opened his palms to reveal a large black sphere. It was not a Rasengan, but something completely different. Naruto smirked. I am going to have to thank Hinata for all the jutsus and memories she recorded in her journal, he muttered as he glared at Gadora. Chibaku Tensei. The black sphere launches towards Gadora and lands at the center of his chest. The golden kaiju flinched as he felt his body get pulled into the sphere, but Gadora using every ounce of his strength to resist the pull. If you think a gravity ball would stop me, you're mistaken, Acknowledgia. Gadora roared as he struggled against the gravitational pull of the sphere. Naruto smirked in response. I know that. Suddenly, Gadora noticed several chunks of rock and wood began to gather and pile on top of him and the sphere. The debris continued to gather until a giant planetoid stood before Naruto as he dismissed the chains. The Black Dragon King raises his head as several particles of Ethernano began to gather above his maw. However, these were not any ordinary particles, but positive and negative charged particles. The particles gathered together to form a sphere that grew in size as more particles converged into the sphere until it was half the size of the rock planetoid. Naruto extends his wings and tail to the sphere. Slowly, the giant ball of Ethernano began to shrink in size, becoming denser and sending a few shockwaves from the sheer weight of power held in the sphere. When the sphere was shrunk down to the size of a marble relative to Naruto's current size, he opened his jaws and swallowed the ball. Naruto's cheeks quickly bloated along with his stomach. Hey, this is the fourth technique he uses from his old world in this fight. Fifth if the Rasengan was included. How amusing. He rears his head back and roars. Let's see you handle my second secret spell. Metsuryuougi, Bijuudama, Tailed Beast Bomb Ball. The condensed ball of mana flew out of Naruto's jaw like a speeding comet soaring into outer space. It reached the planetoid in less than a second. When the bomb reached the sphere, there was a brilliant white flash. Everything became completely silent. Nothing could be heard. Not the billowing winds, the fighting below Naruto, and not even his breathing. Naruto was in a white void of silence. However, that silence quickly ended as soon as it came. The bright flash condensed back before erupting into an explosion equivalent to 100 megatons of TNT. The explosion was so powerful it forced Naruto to create a barrier to avoid being sent flying back. Everyone else below was not so lucky as the explosion was so powerful that it released shockwaves that sent both enemies and a few allies flying just from the sheer force of the blast. And the blast was so bright that it caused the night sky to turn completely into daylight. This blast was so strong and bright that it could be seen for hundreds of miles from the neighboring countries around Fiori, and anyone with sensory capabilities were completely overwhelmed by what they were sensing in the direction of the blast. Just what was going on was the thought going through their minds. The blast lasted for several more minutes before the blast began to shrink and die down. Naruto shook his head to get the spots out of his eyes. That was a lot more powerful than he expected, however, it was necessary to make sure Gadora would be beaten. He deactivated his barrier as he saw the massive smoke cloud caused by the explosion. Naruto sighed. Finally, this is over with. Now to take care of that annoying ass gate. However, a lightning bolt suddenly fired out of the huge dust cloud and struck Naruto's left eye. Arg! He roared in pain. He turned back to the giant cloud in disbelief. Are you fucking kidding me? Out of the giant dust cloud, came a battered but still alive Gadora. The middle head lost an eye and a piece of his right horn. The side heads had their necks burned, along with several parts of its body battered and burned. I will not fall like this, Analogia. Damn it, it all to hell. Why won't you die? Naruto roars as his body is coated in blue mana and lunged towards the speeding Gadora. The dragon and kaiju collided against one another as blue and yellow electrical shockwaves ripple from the collision. The two separate and become literal balls of lightning as they blitzed through the sky as they continued to clash against one another. With each clash between the two, a flash of lightning illuminates the sky, showing their silhouettes to the mages and dragons below them. The two had one last clash as they tried to dominate the other, but the two were locked in another stalemate. Both growled as they pushed more mana into their attack and causing more lightning to ripple from the two. After one final shove, the two jumped back and retaliated again with Gravity Beam. Hakai no Hoko. The two signature attacks collided once more in a bright explosion as the two stared each other down. Naruto narrowed his eyes. He needed to end this fight. He had one way to do so but was hoping to save this for more dire situations, but this fight has gone on for long enough. A bright aura began to cover Naruto's draconian body as his tribal marking began to emit a faint glow. Gadora tensed as he felt the spike in Acnologia's power and its continuing rise in potency. It didn't know what the Black Dragon had planned, but the Golden Hydra wasn't going to take chances. Gadora began powering up its mana to counter anything Naruto may have in store for him. The two continued to rise their magical power as their auras collided against one another. Lightning crackled from the shockwaves their auras created as they clashed against one another. Boom. Suddenly, the two dragons were interrupted by a loud explosion from below them. The two looked down to see the Eclipse gate was destroyed. Naruto gave a prideful smirk. So they finally destroyed the bloody gate. It's about time. Though slamming into it would not have been my way, but it worked so I can't complain. Naruto looks around to see several lights shine around the ruined capital. He turned to see Gadora also glowing. They are returning to their original timeline, he mused. It's finally over. Bang. Boom. However, Naruto was cut from his thoughts as he was harshly hit from behind. He felt his back burn from the surprise attack. He turned to see Gadora holding onto his wings with his feet as the three heads glared down at him with his entire body covered in a golden glow. The two side heads bit down onto the sides of his neck. Acnologia flinched as he once more felt his mana quickly drain from his body as Gadora grew stronger. The kaiju dragon then focused its additional power as the side heads released their grips and all three heads began charging up their power to their maws. Did you think this would stop me, Acnologia? The middle head mocked. That was rather naive of you, Acknowledgia. The right head chastised. And it will cost you dearly. The left head gleefully cackled. Gravity beams. The three heads roared in unison as they fired three large blasts at point-blank range. Naruto's vision went completely white with the last thing he felt was the searing burns from Gadora's gravity beams on his back. Naruto could feel his body falling before slamming hard into the ground around the destroyed Eclipse gate. Acnologia, Naruto Tou-san. Naruto growled as he slowly rose back to his feet, but the pain he was feeling was excruciating. Just the hell was he thinking? How could he just let his guard down like that? All because he saw the gate being destroyed. Was he that naive and arrogant still? Even after all this time? A powerful gust of wind billowed around the remnants of the Eclipse gate. The mages and dragons around the gate covered their eyes from the force of the winds. When the winds calmed down, the majority of the mages turned a pale shade of white as they saw the cause of the gust of wind. Standing just a few feet away from them was none other than King Gadora. Igneel and Grandini rushed in front of the humans as they growled at the golden kaiju. Gadora merely scoffed at the dragon's attempt to protect the weak humans. However, their attention was focused on their opponent. Ha 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 ha. You've lost your touch, Acknologia. Honestly, to let your guard down after the Eclipse gate was destroyed. Either you were being overly optimistic. The right head lectured. Or you're just plain stupid. Slurred the left head. The three heads slowly moved towards Naruto's down form. However, several blasts of fire and wind blocked their path. You won't touch him. Several voices shouted. The three heads turned in amusement to see Igneel and Grandini growling at the golden kaiju along with the mages that looked ready to fight. However, Gadora's attention was focused on two individuals in the crowd. Wendy and Lucy. More specifically the scent he was getting from the brunette. Ho! Is that your daughter, Acknologia? I can smell your scent on her. That blonde girl also resembles that Anna woman. Is she one of your descendants? The middle head wondered out loud. The two girls stiffened, Wendy in anger while Lucy was in fear and confusion, as the dragons and human mages tensed in preparation to fight the kaiju. Maybe we should play with them first. The left head suggested. Yes, first them and then you'll be the main course. The right head confirmed. Go aim Ost, king of the monsters. One of the heads lunged forward, but it was caught by the outstretched claw of Acknologia. Everyone turned to Acknologia, and they all gasped in surprise. The reason? Acknologia's body had recovered as his tribal markings were glowing. But the marks were not their normal brilliant blue, but a deep crimson red as a bloody red aura covered his body. Everyone quickly felt the massive spike in Acknologia's power along with the incredible heat that he was emitting as the rubble around him began to melt in a matter of seconds. Everyone quickly backed up as they did not want to get caught in the intense aura as Igneel and Grandini retreat in front of the mages to protect them from the heat and to stay out of Naruto's way. Gadora quickly managed to release itself from Naruto's grip. The three heads glared at the black dragon as his power continued to rise. This was probably what Acknologia planned to use before the two noticed the destruction of the gate. However, Gadora would not be intimidated by a color swap. Gadora reared his three heads back and fired his gravity beams. However, to his shock, Acknologia stood there and took the blasts head-on. The more shocking part was that Acknologia was not moved an inch by his attack. Naruto had been completely still with his head down since Gadora's head got out of his grip. The black dragon raised his head to show instead of white beady eyes, he had blood-red eyes with black slits. This ends now. Naruto lunges as he slams into Gadora. He swiftly grabs the two side heads and uses his incredible strength to lift the golden kaiju and hurl him high into the air. Naruto quickly followed after him. Gadora regains his balance and tried to blast Naruto again, but the black dragon merely shrugged them off. Naruto's tribal markings began to glow rapidly as Naruto gives a mighty roar as a crimson pulse erupted out of Naruto's body. Gadora screeched in pain as it was hit by the pulse. He felt like his entire body was on fire. The kaiju tried to get closer to Naruto to counterattack, but the Dragon King would not give him that opportunity. He unleashes another pulse that was even stronger than the last one as they burned and melted off the side heads of Gadora. Gadora screeched in pain again as Naruto coldly glared at the golden dragon and released one last pulse. This one managed to burn off Gadora's wings. Naruto quickly flew in and caught him before he could fall to the ground by holding firmly onto the middle head's throat. He raises his free arm as a large Rasengan began to form in his palm. However, this was not the peak as Naruto pumped more power into the Rasengan as it began to change form. The Rasengan gained a white hue as four wind blades spun around the center of the Rasengan. Mana continued to be poured into the Rasengan as the blades grew longer and went a bit faster. A loud screeching sound could be heard as everyone below looked in awe of the new technique they were witnessing. Many saw how similar this attack was to Wendy's, but much bigger and much more powerful. What is that? Hisui asked as everyone looked in awe and fear of the attack due to the sheer amount of mana oozing out of it. That's the evolution of my current Rasengan and one of the most powerful variants my father created, Wendy explained. It feels incredible, Lucy replied with several others nodding. But that sound is ear-grating, Natsu grumbled in annoyance with the two dragons nodding in agreement. Wendy, what is the spell's name? Mira asked. Wendy smiled. It's called the Rasen's Hurricane. Naruto roared as he slammed the giant spiraling shuriken into the abdomen of Gadora. It easily pierced through the kaiju's golden scales and right into his abdomen. Gadora gave one final screech as he and Naruto were enveloped in a giant electrical flash. Kaboom! As a massive explosion erupted in the skies. Everyone near the vicinity covered their eyes from the brilliant flash of the explosion. All the other mages and dragons turned their attention as they saw the explosion go off in the flash that followed it. The explosion lasted a few more minutes before the flash finally faded as the area in front of the mages and two dragons were covered in a thick dust cloud. Everyone looked with anxious anticipation for the outcome of that last attack. The most anxious being Wendy, Grandini, Igneel, Natsu, and Lucy. When the dust settled, everyone releases the breath they were holding as they saw Naruto, back in his normal dragon form, standing over the beaten form of Gadora, and they could tell that he was not getting back up. Are you finally done, Gadora? Naruto demanded as he watched his downed opponent. Gadora tried to lift his glowing body but eventually relented and fell back down and nodded. I would like to say I have some fight left in me, but that would be a lie. He said. The kaiju then turned his attention to his opponent. Tell me, Acnologia, why did you not use this form earlier? The black dragon sighed. That form is a last resort that I only used when I am backed against the wall. My other spells were not suitable in this fight against you, so this was the best chance at winning this fight. Not to mention that form has setbacks if I use it for a prolonged period of time. I see, but it was a glorious battle. The likes of which I have not had in a long time. Gadora complimented. Naruto nodded. The feeling is mutual. Gadora hacked a glob of blood as he looked up at Naruto. May you honor my last request. Naruto raised an eyebrow before nodding. Speak it. I wish for you to take my soul, Gadora revealed. Naruto's widened at the request. Of all the things Gadora could have asked, that was the last thing he ever expected. He narrowed his eyes. What was Gadora scheming? Why? You are strong, Acnologia. But I can feel it, you can become so much stronger. There are still depths to your power that you have not realized. Allow my absorption to help you onto that path of power. I find being a part of you will be far more fulfilling than anything death could offer me. Naruto stared down at Gadora as he considered the offer. Absorbing Gadora's soul would give him a boost in power, perhaps even something else could be obtained from it as well. But could he trust Gadora? The kaiju should know he couldn't harm him even if he absorbed his soul. As a soul slayer of Saphira, he could repel such attacks to his soul from both internal and external sources. And he could sense that Gadora's offer was indeed genuine. After a few more moments of silence, he nodded. As you wish. However, before he could begin, Gadora stopped him. Before that, Acnologia, let me give you one last warning. After absorbing my soul, do not let that stop you, Acnologia. You must become stronger than you are now. Much stronger. You struggled to defeat me, and the enemies you'll face in the future will not as simple. The other pantheons are sure to have sensed or seen our battle today. They will seek you out, for good and ill intentions. Let us not forget the ones from your pantheon and your old enemies that will come for you after tonight and those close to you. Especially the alpha of my species. I can guarantee you, he sensed this battle and its conclusion. He is sure to seek you out for a fight. You may have defeated me, the king, but the Kaiser will not be as simple. Naruto nodded. I will keep that in mind. If any come for a fight, I will be ready for them. Naruto opened his maw as a large golden orb rose out of Gadora's chest. Farewell Dragon King Acknowledgia. Farewell, King Gadora. These were the last words exchanged between the two kings as Gadora's eyes closed for the last time. The kaiju's soul rose to the air before stopping right in front of the black dragon. Naruto quickly swallows the soul as Gadora's body dissipated into golden particles. His eyes widen as he felt his body and energy rejuvenate instantly and his power surged into greater heights. He felt incredible. Power was literally flowing throughout his entire body. It had been centuries since he absorbed such a powerful soul like Gadora's. Blue lightning danced around his entire draconian body. His tribal markings were shining a bright sky blue as a royal blue aura covered his body. Naruto gritted his teeth as he adjusted himself to the power oozing out of his body. Naruto gave a mighty roar of victory. Screonk. A massive beam of Ethernano erupted out of his jaws and flew into the air. The massive blast illuminated the skies as it rippled across the ruined remains of the capital as everyone looked at the spectacle in astounded awe. As the light died down, Naruto sighed as he reverted into his human form. He sighed in exhaustion. It's finally over, he muttered. Tou-san. Naruto turned to the shout and quickly caught a fast blur that slammed into his chest. He looked down to see Wendy tightly hugging him with her face buried into his chest. You're okay. You're okay. She continued to mutter in relief. Naruto gave a soft smile as he returned her tight embrace. I'm glad you and the others are okay, Wendy. Thank you, father. For everything, Naruto shook his head. No, Wendy. I am the one who should be thanking you. Naruto sighed as he held Wendy as she sobbed into his chest. This had been a very long night for both of them and Wendy was venting out her pent-up frustrations, sorrows. He could understand though. She saw her sister killed in front of her, her necklace was destroyed, her foster mother reappeared, and she had to fight a dragon. Honestly, it was amazing how long she held it in. But everyone has their limits on how much shit they can take in one day before they snapped. Just like her mother when I saw her again. He mused in nostalgia. He looked to see Igneel, Grandini, and all of the human mages that were near the gate approach. Wendy. We have an audience waiting for us. His daughter nodded. The father-daughter duo turned to their audience. Some of them looked in relief, several were weary, many looked distrustful, and one, in particular, looked angry. Naruto took one step and stumbled a bit before he balances himself. Are you okay? Mira asked. Naruto looked up at her. He could see that despite being weary, she was genuinely concerned about his condition. What an interesting girl. Don't worry, I'm fine. He glanced at his daughter with a look that said he meant it. Mira did not look convinced. Are you sure? I mean Naruto. Naruto nodded. Yes. I am simply a bit winded after my fight with Gadora. It has been a long time since I had to face someone of his strength. So I am still a bit rusty. The takeover mage tilted her head in confusion. Didn't you train for 7 years? Yes, I did. Which is why I did so well. If this was 7 years ago, I would be in worse condition. Naruto turned to see Lucy looking at him. She began, but Naruto raised his hand. Look, I know you all have a lot of questions. But let's leave them until we meet with everyone else, alright? Lucy gulped before nodding. Oh okay. Natsu looked like he was about to say something, but Lucy stopped him. He grumbled as he glared as Naruto passed by them as everyone slowly followed him. Center of the capital city. What is our status, Captain? King Toma asked. Your Majesty. From what we have gathered, several have been injured, but no casualties at the moment. However, the entire capital has been reduced to ruin and rubble. It would take months to get everything back to how they were hours ago. The king shook his head. The city can be repaired. So long as the people live, then so will our kingdom. Father. Toma turned to the source of his voice and his face broke into a wide, tearful grin as his daughter, Hisui, came rushing towards him. He rushed to meet her halfway as he enveloped his daughter in a tight hug. Hisui. Oh, I am so glad to see you all right. A tearful Toma sobbed out. So am I, father. Toma looked to see Najanda approach the two with a small smile. Lady Najanda, it's good to see you alive. A relieved Toma said. The white-haired general nodded. You as well, Your Majesty. Toma turned to Akame and Kurome. Thank you girls for keeping Hisui safe. The twins bowed before Akame spoke. Thank you, but we had a lot of help. The king turned to see several mages reuniting with one another. Lisana immediately dashed towards her sister and wrapped her in a tight hug. Mirajane. Are you okay? Mira flinched as she giggled weakly. Bruised, but alive. Lucy. Wendy. Are you two okay? Juvia was worried. The sobbing water mage exclaimed as she held the two tightly. We're fine Juvia, Wendy said as she and the others reunited with the other members of Fairy Tail. Yukino was about to speak with her sister, but she had already left to join her guild. Yukino was slightly sad but knew she would have a chance to speak with her later. Hey, Flame Brain. Gray greeted his fiery rival friend. Oh hey, Gray, Natsu said absent-mindedly. Gray noticed his rival's lack of enthusiasm and wondered what was wrong. I thought you would be happy to be with your dad. Natsu grimaced a bit. Yeah I am, but... Whatever he was going to say was cut off as 5 large silhouettes covered the entire square that the mages were in. Everyone looked up in awe as Igneel and the other 4 dragons descended right in front of them. Whoa, many of the mages say as they gape at their 5 new guests. The first-generation dragon slayers were going through a myriad of emotions as they gazed upon the parents they had been searching for, or in the case of Rogue and Sting, confusion as to how their parents are alive. Before they could say anything, the dragons turned their attention to someone approaching. There he is, Makarov said as Naruto D. Marvell casually walked towards the assembled group. Nearly everyone stayed silent, except Anna and Irene as they walked forward until they were in between the dragons and Naruto, who stopped just a few inches from them. Without much prompt or indication, Igneel bent down until he was on one knee as he bowed to Naruto. The other dragons, Anna, and Irene followed suit. Your Majesty. They said in unison. It is an honor and pleasure to see you like this again, Dragon King. Igneel proclaimed. Everyone wondered what Naruto was going to do. Would he laugh and demand the rest of them to bow as well? Would he begin some long spiel of his superiority? Naruto did none of this as he merely rolled his eyes at his wives and the 5 dragons. Get up, idiots. You know I hate that whole bowing crap. Hell, my father, Thorin hated it. He lectured before turning to his wives. And why are you two bowing? You're my queens. I see you as my equals, you don't have to bow to me. Ever. Naruto emphasized. Anna and Irene smirked as they and the dragons rose to their feet. Always the charmer. Irene teased. Naruto smirked. I aim to please. Yes, you do. The two said in unison. A rough cough got their attention as they turned to see everyone looking at them. Wendy was giving them a cheeky grin with a thumbs up, Urza was playing with her thumbs trying to avoid their gaze, and Lucy was laughing awkwardly. Oh, right, I almost forgot we had an audience. Naruto mused as he snapped his fingers. In an instant, all of the palace soldiers, Lahar, and most of the other mages of the guilds fell to the ground. Everyone gasped in shock. Hey, what did you do to them? Doranbolt demanded after checking Lahar's pulse. Naruto waved off his and the other mages' glare. Relax, I just knocked them out to not hear the following conversation. You can fix their memories after you're done hearing everything. That is your talent, isn't it? Naruto asked with an ominous smile. Chills went down Doranbolt's spine as he gulped and nodded rapidly. Naruto smirked as with a wave of his hands a chair made out of stone rose out of the ground. He sat leisurely into the stone furniture. Now then, you may now begin asking questions. Wham! Abruptly Natsu slammed a fiery right hook to Naruto's face. Natsu! Everyone exclaimed. However, the attack did nothing as Naruto merely caught it with one finger. You bastard, Natsu growled. Naruto sighed with his eyes closed before he opened them and stared at the fire dragon slayer in boredom and annoyance. Naive fool. Did you think my slightly weaker condition will make me vulnerable to your pitiful fists? Know your place, Natsu Dragneel. Naruto lectured as he pushed Natsu back with a simple tap to the chest as he skidded several feet back. Natsu growled as fire emitted from his entire body. You bastard, he was cut off as Gray grabbed and held him in a full Nelson. Oi! Hold on, flame head. He's the last person to piss off. Gray tried to reason with the fire mage. Gildarts got in between Natsu and Naruto. Chill out, Natsu. Gildarts lectured. No. I need to bash this bastard's face into the ground. Suddenly Urza and Wendy appeared in front of Naruto. You won't touch him, Urza swore as she summoned a pair of blades in her hands and several more above her head. If you want to get to him, Natsu, you will have to get through us, Wendy warned as she summoned Bakuya and Kansho as wind swirled around her. Everyone got rather nervous as the tension was thick in the air. Whoa. Hold on. Let's all calm down, Lucy said nervously. We are friends, right? If we're supposed to be friends, then why they defending that piece of shit? Natsu exclaimed. Natsu, enough. You will not speak to your king in such a fashion. Igneel roared and caused everyone to flinch in fear as the Fire Dragon King unleashed a potent amount of his magical pressure to make his point across. Give me one reason not to. Natsu shouted back. Suddenly, Laxus appeared right next to him and with hesitation slugged the fire mage. Open your fucking eyes, Natsu. If it wasn't for ACNOLOGIA, most of us would be dead right now. Laxus roared. That caused any resistance that Natsu was giving to cease as the others also stayed silent. As much as many did not want to admit it, Laxus was right. Naruto's and Irene's enchantment really saved them. It gave them the boost they needed to take the beatings from the dragons and actually be able to injure them. Not to mention Naruto summoning the 5 missing dragons was also a huge lifesaver. Gildarts patted Natsu on his shoulder. You can hate him all you want, but none of us can deny we owe him for our lives. The Crush Mage explained gently. Natsu growled before sighing in resignation as he nodded slowly. He then turned to the Bluenet Sky Mage. Wendy, how long did you know your father was Acnologia? I have known since I was very little. I told you this before, remember? Wendy explained. The mages all looked at her in surprise. And you never told us before, why? Natsu emphasized. Wendy rolled her eyes. Oh, I'm sorry. She started in a sarcastic tone. What the hell was I supposed to say? Hey everyone, my dad is Acnologia. Yeah, that would have ended up well. Everyone flinched as they knew that if they had found this out prior, it would have ended disastrously. Especially if the Magic Council ever caught wind of this. Cammy, help all of them if the council ever tries to harm Wendy and bring the wrath of her father to not just the council but the entire world as well. Gray looked towards the audience of mages, focusing on Mermaid Heel and Fairy Tail. How many knew that Naruto was Acnologia? Makarov, Gildarts, Urza, Anna, Irene, Laxus, Mavis, Jello, Ultir, and Meridi raised their hands. Master. Gildarts. You guys knew. Gray exclaimed in shock. We've known about Naruto since the 3 months gap for the GMG. We spoke with Mavis about our suspicions due to Wendy's odd behavior when we returned. Makarov explained. Wendy scratched her head sheepishly while her father and mother shook their heads in amusement. Laxus. Evergreen asked. I found out during the end of the 3rd day along with those 3, Laxus said before pointing at the members of Crime Sorcier. Jello. You found out before me. Urza exclaimed in shock and disbelief. Why did he find out before her? That's not fair. Jello looked sheepishly at his girlfriend. Sorry, Urza. I would have told you, but that was your dad's responsibility. Plus your dad may have threatened to kill me. Tou-san. A blushing Urza protested with an embarrassed tone. Hey, I only said I would kill if he made you cry. As your father, I have every right to rip him to pieces if he makes you have tears. Now Urza's face was as red as her hair. Tou-san. He's right, you know, Irene commented. Please do not encourage him, Mom, Urza whined. Hold it. So you all knew and said nothing. Natsu shouted before a sudden and oppressive magical pressure coming out of Naruto. Enough, boy. Naruto coldly ordered as everyone shivered at the tone as Natsu nodded mutely, knowing this was a particular time to keep his mouth shut for once. Naruto sighed as he got comfortable. Now then allow me to explain myself a bit. I am sure most of you all remember the conversation you had with Zirconis, correct? Those who had been to the dragon graveyard nodded in agreement, while everyone else looked completely lost. Urza, Laxus, and Lucy took turns explaining what happened to get everyone up to speed with the events. As you learned, I created Dragon Slayer magic to tip the scale of the Dragon Civil War. I was the first to receive it. I gained the name of Dracul or Dragon. Some also called me Dracula, son of the dragon. However, there were consequences for creating this magic. You either disintegrated into dust because your body could not maintain the power, or you lost your mind and became mindless beasts that had to be put down. If you somehow avoided that, you would go through the slow process of dragonification. Wait, so any dragon slayer can become a dragon? Sting exclaimed. Naruto nodded. That's right. The more you use your dragon slayer magic, the closer you will be to becoming a dragon. It's an inevitability. The only exceptions are Laxus and Cobra, as they are artificial slayers. As such, they won't have to worry about that. Thank goodness for that. Cobra and Laxus muttered in unison. So the rest of us are at risk of becoming a dragon? Rogue asked. Neither he nor Sting were very thrilled at the idea. Naruto shook his head. No. None of you have to worry about that. Well, that concern doesn't apply to Wendy, anyway. Now the two slayers and the other mages were confused. What do you mean? Leon asked. I mean, the reason your dragons disappeared was to prevent you brats from turning into dragons. When it was discovered that many of us were going under dragonification, I researched ways of finding a solution. Reversing proved to be impossible, so I worked on a solution while also fighting on the front lines of the war. I was never able to find a complete solution. I had discovered a possible answer, but I had never had the chance to actually test it and determined if any negative side effects occurred. Naruto sighed as he turned to glare at the 5 dragons in annoyance. That did not stop these 5 idiot dragons from using my notes and performing the incomplete ritual. Oi, we are not idiots. The 5 roared indignantly. Naruto rose from his seat this time as he shouted, yes, you 5 are. WHO uses untested method to seal your body and soul into your slayer's body. Wait, what? Everyone exclaimed in shock, except for those who already knew this. That's what happened. Natsu exclaimed as he stared at his father in shock. Igneel nodded. Yes. The idea I had was for the dragons to enter your bodies and create antibodies to fight off the spread of the dragon seed and prevent the dragonification from ever becoming visible. So what happened to end the war? Gray asked. Naruto palmed his face as he sat down and let out a long sigh as he dragged his hand down and gave his audience a very tired look. My fucking stupidity. I went to Zerf to try and end the war, and the only way I could think of was for him to make me part demon. But I became a mindless monster. I destroyed and killed everyone that stood in my way. He turned to the 5 dragons. These 5 suffered a similar fate. But they are standing right here. Sting reminded him. He is not entirely wrong, Igneel said. What do you mean, Igneel? Natsu asked. What he means is that when Naruto attacked us, he used his soul-slaying magic and ripped large pieces of our souls. In our wounded state, we would have died. Sealing ourselves within you 5 saved us and allowed us to prevent your dragonification. Except for Wendy. Grandini as she looked at her foster daughter. Wait, how did you escape and why is Wendy the exception? Gajeel asked in confusion. We used the Eclipse gate and traveled 400 years into the future. The day we arrived in this time period, July 7, 777. The day you believed we disappeared was the day you arrived in this time period. Metallicana explained. Then everyone who knew the 5 slayers from a young age had an epiphany. The inability to write or read the current language, the lapses of memory, and then the oddity of Natsu and Gajeel not being able to escape the rune barrier. That explains a lot. Several mages said in unison. As for Wendy, she's the exception due to me giving a certain power that once belonged to me, it combined with her magic and mutated it. Now she is like myself and Irene. Naruto explained. Suddenly something popped in Hisui's mind. Wait. 14 years ago, I remember seeing 5 lights flying in the sky and heading into different locations. Are you saying? Naruto nodded. Yes, that was the 5 dragons that flew out of the gate and went to 5 separate locations. That was also when Anna came to this time period. Toma nodded. Yes, I remember. She was in terrible condition, but we managed to get her medical attention, and thanks to that, with her incredible will and regeneration, she made a full recovery. Especially with the help of that stellar mage. Anna smiled. Yes, I do owe you and Layla Heartfilia a lot for nursing me back to life. Wait, you knew my mom? Lucy exclaimed in shock. Anna nodded. Hi. She was the one to open the gate in this time period. She knew to do this thanks to a journal I left for one of my descendants to read and find their way to the King of Fury to open the gate. Anna then frowned. Though I did warn you not to use those damn gates again, as nothing good would come out of using it. Toma and Hisui flinched. Forgive us, Anna-sama. We thought using the gates to stop Zerf would also cause Acnologia to no longer exist. We now see that was a critical error on our part. Naruto glared at the king and princess. Indeed, and we will have a chat about that when this is all over, got it? Toma gulped as he nodded fearfully. So why does Anna have Dragon Slayer magic and why does she look like Lucy? Natsu asked. Anna waved to her husband. I can take it from here. Anna began before turning to the audience. The reason I look so much like Lucy is because I am her ancestral mother. As I said, I am from 400 years in the past. Wait. Lucy shouted. Naruto called you his queen. So you're his wife as well. The blonde stellar mage then paled. That means that. Naruto and Anna nodded. Yes, Lucy. You are also descended from Naruto. He's your ancestral father. That explains why you snapped when Minerva beat Lucy. Levi realized. It was because they mocked my descendant. My blood. My kin. No one mocks my daughter. Naruto growled. Lucy blushed as she was a little flattered at how protective Naruto was of her. Wait, Anna, how did you become a dragon slayer? Natsu asked. Simple. I am the mate of the dragon slayer king and queen. When they marked me as their mate, I gained dragon slayer qualities. Anna explained. Wait, can Lucy become a dragon slayer? Levi asked. Naruto and Anna shrugged. The only way she would become a slayer would be if Natsu or another slayer took her as their mate. Lucy and Natsu blushed red. Oi! Don't say it like that. The blonde stellar screeched. Naruto sighed in annoyance. Oh boy. He then turned to Wendy. Are they really this in denial? Wendy nodded. Yes, father. But maybe after this, they could get together, she said cheerfully. Wendy. The two shouted in embarrassment. Wendy shrugged innocently. What? Not my fault you act like an old married couple. And if Natsu is worried about Listener, he could always have a harem like my dad did. Wendy. Natsu, Lucy, and Listener screamed in mortification. Listener and Lucy looked like their faces were completely on fire. Mira was mentally writing down plans to share with Wendy and Naruto to get the three together. The Sky Slayer rolled her eyes. Oh, quit your whining. You, Urza, and I are sisters. Teasing each other is part of the norm for sisters. Then there's Katya, Ultir, and Meridi. Wait, why are you bringing us into this? Meridi asked in confusion. Wendy shrugged. What? Ultir, I am sure you've heard how my dad had an interest with your mother and considered courting her. That also means he's kinda your grandfather, Meridi. Both Ultir and Meridi blushed red as Naruto did make a similar remark when they met with him at the end of the third day. Naruto then turned to the time mage. Speaking of you, Ultir. We're gonna talk about that reckless stunt you nearly pulled. Ultir gulped as everyone turned to her, especially Meridi and Jello, who were suspicious at what Naruto meant. After Naruto explained what she planned to do, Ultir's teammates were far from happy. What the hell were you thinking, all? Meridi exclaimed in anger and fear at the thought of almost losing her adopted mother. The time mage flinched at the look her daughter was giving her. Sorry, I was desperate and I wasn't sure if we were going to survive the invasion despite all the help we were getting. Naruto was now standing in front of Ultir. You're damn right, you were desperate and downright foolish. That was reckless of you to throw away your life so easily. That is not what your mother wanted for you. This time, Ultir was getting annoyed. Just why was Naruto so fixated on her well-being? Why does my life or what happens to me matter to you so much? She finally demanded. Naruto grabbed Ultir's shoulders. Because I already failed your mother. I cannot fail you as well. Ultir's eyes widened as everyone was silenced into confusion. Just what did have to do with this? Gray and Leon were especially curious about his answer to this. What do you mean? Ultir finally asked softly. I couldn't protect the children and dragons in my care. I failed my wife and everyone close to me 400 years ago. I failed Wendy and the other Slayers by not getting more involved in their lives. I failed Layla and her daughter. I failed my surrogate sister, Mavis, when she needed me. I failed your mother by not being there to save her and going out to look for you. I am sick and tired of failing the people close to me and their kids. Naruto released a long, deep sigh of exhaustion. He then glared at Ultir again. So no arguments. You are not doing that again. Naruto demanded with a tone of finality. Okay. Sorry, father. Ultir says softly, not paying attention to what she just called Naruto. Naruto nodded as he walked back to his seat and turned to his silent audience. Next question. Katya raised her hand. Why did you include me? Wendy giggled playfully. Come on, Katya. Your appearance is too similar to me for it to be a coincidence. She then turned to her father. Well. Naruto rolled his eyes at his daughter before turning to the other brunette. Katya, I noticed your stellar power within you, but I couldn't place what exactly it was. Your appearance also made me suspicious of what our connection could be. But when you summoned the Titans and if I consider your appearance, it all came together. Anna was looking closely at Katya. Now that you mention it, she really is her spitting image, she said in a stunned, happy tone. It's almost scary, but you heartphilia always resemble one another, Irene replied. What exactly do you mean? Katya asked. You are a descendant of my daughter, Lysandra Heartphilia, and the only other mage to have possessed and commanded the celestial titans, Naruto explained. Katya blushed as she realized she was staring at her ancestral parents. Oh. She was unsure what or how to feel. A part of her was happy and excited to find out that she had a family. But another part of her was a bit anxious that she was related to the Dragon King, not to mention, would she have to leave Eclair and stay with Wendy and the others? This brought another issue of what will happen with Eclair and Mammon. Katya was cut from her myriad of thoughts when Wendy gave her a big hug. Anna gave a cheeky grin. Looks like our little family is growing. Wendy nodded. Yeah, I can't wait to see who else will be brought in. She chirped as Katya and the other girls blushed. Irene pointed at Naruto. Ask your father. After all, he always likes to have a large harem. You should have seen that one time during our orgy night. Irene, mistress, mom, auntie. Several people exclaimed, with Urza being the loudest. Naruto frowned as he turned to his red-haired wife. Hold up. Hold up. I am not taking the fall for that. Need I remind you that it was you, Kazuhana, and Tsukimi that brought those bloody aphrodisiac flowers to that large dinner? Not to mention that you and the other girls were relentlessly teasing me all week before that dinner and you too encouraged it. Let us not forget that your mothers joined in on the fun. I am glad they were not there that night, Lord knows what could have happened. Naruto ranted. Anna and Irene blushed a bit as they giggled. Yeah, you didn't have much control after the flower took effect. Naruto huffed. I managed enough self-control to place an anti-pregnancy seal on all of you. Before turning to his stellar blonde bombshell. Everyone, except Anna, who somehow managed to reverse it and get pregnant with the twins. I still wonder how you even managed to do that. Irene asked her blonde lover. Anna giggled as she gave a coy smirk to the two. I have amazing hands. Naruto and Irene gave equal smirks. Yes, you do. Can you please stop talking about that? A steaming Lucy and Urza begged, with many others nodding in agreement. Naruto, Anna, and Irene shrugged. Not like you people are unaware of sex, Naruto replied. Wendy is too young for this. Lucy protested. Wendy sighed in resignation. Sorry to say, Lucy, I already had the sex talk. Plus my dad will probably build up his harem to satisfy his princess fetish. So I have prepared myself to hear a lot of this in the future. I do not have a princess fetish, Wendy. Naruto denied it immediately. Maybe that's why dragons have been connected with that clique. Igneel teased. Hold up, I had nothing to do with that clique. That existed before my time. Don't blame me for it. Naruto protested. You made it popular. Irene teased, with Anna nodding in agreement. I did not. Naruto denied it again. You kinda did, Dad, Wendy replied. Naruto turned to her with a look. Explain, he demanded. Hinata Okawa-sama was the princess of her clan. Anna Ka-chan could be considered the princess queen of the celestial spirit world and her family. Auntie Irene was the princess of the kingdom along with Ka-chan. All of the girls that were part of the harem were considered princesses to varying degrees. Wendy explained. She grinned at her father as she turned to the audience. Grandini Ka-san has the hots for you and is considered the Sky Queen. Then there's So it won't surprise me if you court Mira, Sela, Kagura and probably Hisui, Eclair, and Yukino. Every single woman that Wendy mentioned blushed a deep red. Grandini's head was crimson with steam coming out of it, much to the other dragons' amusement. Anna and Irene were giggling and secretly planning out the expansion of Naruto's harem and their future partners. Several of the girls felt a chill go down their spines, knowing something was going to happen to them in the near future. Naruto just stared at his daughter blankly before sighing in resignation as he turns to his audience. Does anyone else have any questions? Are you not even going to deny it? Nearly everyone, especially the aforementioned females, screamed in their heads. Can you show us your harem? Natsu asked. Natsu. Many exclaimed. Natsu turned to them in confusion. What? He asked innocently. Naruto looked at Natsu blankly. Why? He asked curtly with his immediate family looking at him in concern. Natsu shrugged. Because I am pretty sure everyone here is curious, some more verbal than others. Naruto gave the fire slayer a deep stare for several minutes before finally sighing. Fine. He relented as he snapped his fingers as the projections of 10 very attractive women appeared before everyone. In quick order, these are Musubi, Uzume, Kazuhana, Tsukimi, Miya, Matsu, Akatsu, Karasuba, Hibiki, and finally Hikari, Naruto explained as he named each girl. The results were instant as most of the men flew away in a geyser of blood shooting out of their noses with hearts in their eyes. Most of the girls and remaining guys had their jaws on the floor with blushes covering their faces. The dragons were all just chuckling in amusement as they looked at the projections with a nostalgic look. Anna and Irene looked longingly at their former co-lovers with sad frowns. You fucking lucky bastard. Most of the guys groaned as they came back to their senses. Naruto rolled his eyes as he dispelled the projections. What happened to them? Natsu asked. They died at the end of the war, Natsu. That's it. Naruto replied curtly as his immediate family flinched at his tone. The rest could tell that the subject was dropped and not be brought again. At least for now. What happened to future Lucis timeline? Did we manage to save it? Natsu asked. Naruto sighed knowing this was gonna turn ugly. Natsu, that is not how time travel works. What do you mean? Lucy asked. I mean that time is not linear. There are an infinite number of possible futures and thus creating multiple split timelines. The timeline that Mirai Lucy came from is one of an endless number. We changed the future of this timeline. However, we did not change or erase Mirai Lucy's timeline. We merely changed how the future will be for this timeline. Her timeline is still the desolated wasteland she left. Everyone was angry and upset at the news, while Natsu looked enraged. That's not fair. We stopped that bastard and destroyed the gate for nothing. Naruto looked at him as if he grew a second head. We saved this timeline from suffering the same fate. So her sacrifice was not for nothing. Natsu, since when has this been about fairness? Life is unfair. Hell, it can be downright cruel. And sometimes the only thing you can do is accept it and move on. Bastard. Natsu lunged at him, but Lucy hugged the angry fire mage from behind. Natsu. Stop. Let him speak. Lucy said as she begged softly at the end. Natsu glared at Naruto. You keep talking about unfair, then let's about you. Let's talk about the unfair crap you did to Lucy. Your so-called daughter. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he had an idea where Natsu was going with this. What are you? You forgot what you did to her. Need I remind you when you put her in that coma for 7 years, her father passed away and she couldn't see him again. She couldn't even say goodbye. That's your fault. His blood is on your hands. Natsu stop. Lucy shouted as she held Natsu tighter. But Natsu began, but Lucis' glare made him pause. Lucis' glare softened as she began to speak. Natsu. I know you're angry. But you need to stop. Yes, Naruto has done a lot of terrible things, but he also did a lot of good things. He trained Wendy for the games, he saved her from Raven Tail, he helped me during my match, he showed us the dragon graveyard, and he helped all of us during the invasion. Everyone owes him, even if we don't like him. As for my father, yes, it was because of him that I couldn't see him, but he didn't cause his death. Besides, I know how my dad felt in the end and that's enough. So it's pointless to hold a grudge. Natsu and several others stayed silent as they processed what Lucy said. Naruto sighed as he knew he would be met with a lot and distrust, but he had to press on. He wants to show them that he is trying to make amends for his past sins. There were a lot of sins, but he will make amends for as many as possible and help the people he has wronged. Look, I am not going to stand here and I say I did nothing wrong. I caused harm and suffering for you and the other members of your guild. Something I know better than anyone what suffering can do to a person. It can break them. Change them into something very ugly. I can't change what I have done. I can't take it back either. The only thing I can say is that I am sorry and I will try to make up for my mistakes. Natsu looked confused. What do you mean? What did you suffer from? Naruto sighed. Snap. Suddenly a bucket appeared in front of everyone. Each mage looked up in concern at the Dragon King. What are these for? Gray asked. Because believe me when I say you are going to need it, Naruto explained before closing his eyes. Suddenly his eyes opened wide with a shining white light. Memory share. Everyone's eyes shined white for several seconds before they returned to normal. Everyone was silent for several seconds before quickly rushing to every bucket and emptying their stomachs as the sound of vomiting filled the air. The only ones not puking their stomachs out are Wendy, Urza, Mavis, the dragons, Irene, and Anna as they had already seen all the memories about Naruto's life in Konoha. Fucking damn it. Were the words echoed that summed up everyone's thoughts on the memories they just saw. Too much. Several moaned. I fucking hate you, Natsu. Laxus, Gajiel, and Cobra growled. Get in line. Gray retorted. Piss off. I already hate myself as well. Natsu grunted in response. It took several minutes for everyone to stop sobbing and get themselves to at least look remotely presentable. So, Makarov begins slowly. What exactly comes next after this? Simple, we prepare, Naruto replied. Everyone looked confused and unsure of what he meant. Prepare. Prepare for what? Toma asked. Naruto's face turned grim. War. The word alone caused the king, Hisui and her guards, Najanda, Doranbolt, the wizard saints, and the guild masters to freeze in fear, while the other mages looked worried. Dark forces have begun to rise these past 7 years. I am sure that Jelal and his group have told you about this fairy tale. I am sure the wizard saints and the royal family have heard this as well. The blonde king elaborated. This fight just now has probably brought the attention of a lot of individuals and groups to this country. For good and ill intentions, and maybe something in between. You all barely survived this invasion with my help and the dragons. None of you beat your enemy dragons on your own. Even the dragon slayers needed help to win their fights. So you will all need to start training and I will be assisting to make sure you get up to my standards. Some were a bit skeptical at the claim, but Naruto does not look like the kind to joke about these kinds of things. Many looked unsure. While they knew that he wasn't evil, they weren't sure if they could trust him yet. Natsu slammed his fists together as they ignited. I got no problem with that. Just remember I will be coming after that crown when you least expect it. Naruto gave a hearty laugh that caused a few blushes to appear. Bring it on, boy. I will happily accept your challenge. He then gave Natsu a cheeky grin. When you're ready. That small interaction seems to ease up the tension some people were feeling as many began to cheer in excitement or moan in despair at the hell they were going to face. Suddenly, the 5 dragons began to glow as particles began to emit out of their bodies. What's going on? Gajiel demanded as he stared at his foster parent. What's happening to you guys? Wendy asked in fear as she looked at her mother giving her a sad, resigned smile. It seems our time is up and it's time for us to move on to the next world, Igneel explained. Wait, you can't leave. Natsu shouted in denial. I still need you here. Wendy pleaded with tears in her eyes. Grandini smiled softly as she knelt down close to Wendy. Sweet Wendy, you have grown so much since our time together. I must thank your guild and your father for that. Grandini then lifts her head up as she gazes at the 5 dragon slayers of the first generation. You 5 will be fine without us. Hold it. Hold it. Naruto began. Where do you idiots think you're going? Because you're not leaving and making me clean up your mess. The blonde king lectured. The blonde then waved his hands as a magic seal appeared in front of him. From the sigil, 5 large tubes filled with some kind of liquid rose from it. Inside each tube was what looked like a white cadaver. What are those, Naruto? Wislegia asked. Naruto smirked. Your new bodies, he explained, much to the shock of the dragons and the humans. It took a while to create, but they are ready and Lady Giratina and the others gave their blessing before you ask. The dragons were stunned. Were they actually a chance to live again? How? Skiadrum finally managed to ask. They are artificial bodies that are empty vessels for you to take. Your time in the Slayers helps mend most of the damage done to your souls. These vessels are filled with Soul Dragon Slayer mana attuned to your elements. These will fill in any gaps you have and restore you to your normal selves but with a human form. Think of it as rebirth. Naruto uttered a stunned Metallicana. Sneaky bastard. Igneel snickered. Thank you. The dragons said in unison. Naruto nodded. Anything we should know? Wislegia asked. Make sure you have a human form in mind before going in and make sure it's what you truly desire as your human form, Naruto explained. Now go. He ordered. The dragons all nodded as they all glowed a bright aura of red, green, bluish-white, white, and black as they lunged into the artificial creations. There was a bright flash that blinded everyone from looking at the dragons' new bodies. The only thing anyone could hear was the cracking of the glass tubes and the fluids spilling onto the grounds. There was an eerie silence before steam erupted from the tubes and destroyed the remnants of the glass tubes as they shattered to the ground. The bright light died down as hot steam covered the area in the square. Whoa, that was an odd feeling. A young male voice replied. Indeed, not pleasant or terrible. Just really weird. A gruff voice replied. It feels weird to be so small. A much older voice commented. Why do I feel so heavy in the front? A feminine voice asked. The steam finally dissipated as everyone could now see the dragons and what they saw was jaw-dropping, to say the least. Igneel now looked like a young man in his mid-20s with flowing black hair and a few freckles covered his cheeks. Metallicana was a young man with blonde hair sticking upwards. Wislegia looked like a man in his 40s-50s with shaggy white hair. Skiadrum looked like a man in his 40s with black hair and red eyes. And finally, Grandini looked like a very beautiful and attractive woman in her 40s with long silver hair and blue eyes. For reference to make things easier, Igneel looks like Ace from One Piece, Metallicana looks like Let from Rave Master, Wislegia looks like Ozpin from RWBY, Skiadrum looks like Kiro from RWBY, and finally Grandini looks like Grafia from High School DxD. Holy shit, everyone exclaimed. It actually worked. Igneel cheered in happiness and excitement. However, there was another problem that had to be dealt with. The 5 dragons, now humans, were all buck-ass naked. Everyone either covered their eyes or looked elsewhere for some decency, especially for the mages that were ogling the male dragons and female dragons. Can you idiots put some clothes on? A blushing crowd exclaimed. Naruto, you perverted bastard, what did you to me? Grandini screeched. Naruto felt a vein pop on his forehead in annoyance. I had nothing to do with this. You chose that form all on your own. That's a lie. I didn't ask for it to be like that. The Sky Queen protested as held her large chest. We both know that's bullshit, Grandini. That's the form you chose because it's the form you believe best reflects you. Naruto retorted back. Not to mention it looks absolutely stunning, Anna said as she appreciated the Sky Dragon's form. You're sure to win Naruto's heart. Irene teased. Anna. Irene. An embarrassed Grandini screeched. Naruto sighed. Look, Gran, if you wanted to impress or court me, you didn't have to go so far. Grandini turns to glare at the blonde dragon slayer king. Will you shut up? It took a few more minutes for everyone to calm and to give the new-bodied dragons some temporary attire until more accommodating ones could be acquired at a later point. Now then, we should probably get some rest, Naruto said as he addressed the audience before sighing. It has been along for all of us. How? Najanda couldn't help but ask. Everything has been totally leveled. No, in some part to you. Naruto shrugged. I know that. Ultir, may you come here for a second. The time mage gulped as she walked towards the humanoid black dragon. Naruto rolled his eyes as he saw the anxious look in Ultir's eyes. Relax. I am not going to bite you. I just need you to help me with your magic. Ultir relaxed slightly before raising an eyebrow as she had an idea of what he wanted to do. If you mean arc of time, then you must be joking. I have never tried restoring something as large as a city, let alone one the size of the capital. Naruto merely waved her worries away. Relax, I will help you. I will provide you with the mana and all you have to do is focus and perform the spell. Naruto placed his hand on Ultir's shoulder as he slowly transferred his mana into Ultir. The time mage flinched as she felt a geyser of mana fill reverse and then some. It was insane, she feels like her reverse had been filled 10 times over, perhaps even more. Kami, it was indescribable just how potent Naruto's reserves were and the depths to them. Her connection allowed her to feel the size of Naruto's mana container, but dear lord, it was insane. She literally could not find words to describe the depths of the reserves because she literally had nothing to compare it to. Just how powerful was Naruto? She shook her head as she refocused on her current agenda. Arc of Time. A massive seal appeared around the entire remains of the destroyed capital. In several minutes, rubble, asphalt, cinderblock, cement, and bricks rose into the air as they reconstructed buildings, towers, walls, lanterns, and many more were restored to what they were before the beginning of the last day of the GMG. In just a few minutes, the great capital of Fury was restored to his former glory. Everyone cheered to see the capital back to how it was before. King Toma and Hisui came up to Naruto and bowed to him. Thank you, Acknowledgia. Naruto waved the thanks as he patted Ultir's head, much to her embarrassment. You should be thanking Ultir. She did the spell. I just lent a helping hand. The two thanked the time mage though tried to say that they did not need to thank her. Naruto then turned his attention to the king while the other celebrated. I have something to ask of you, Toma. The king looked at the blonde slayer in confusion. What is it? Naruto bent down and whispered something into Toma's ear. The king's eyes widened before he mulled in his thoughts before sighing and looking at Naruto again. That would be difficult to accomplish but I believe it's possible. Naruto nodded as Toma turned to the audience of mages and knights. Now rest up, mages of Fury. In a few days, I will have a feast celebrating the end of the GMG and you all invited. The king then turned to Naruto. This includes you as well, Acknowledgia. You're awesome, your majesty. Everyone cheered. Naruto nodded in appreciation. Thank you. He then snapped his fingers as the fainted knights were sent to the appropriate sleeping quarters. Naruto then turned to the fairy tale mages. Let's go, brats. We need to get some sleep. It's been a long night for everyone. Everyone nodded as they all began going to their lodgings for a good night's rest. They needed it while the king sent some soldiers to go fetch the civilians from the shelters. Unbeknownst to them, several individuals had been keeping an eye on them. One was just a few feet away as he looked at the retreated mages with absolute fury, especially towards the members of Fairy Tail. I should report this to Lord Savitar as soon as possible. The voice growled as he disappeared into the shadows. A young man with silver spiky hair watched the scene from several miles away from the capital. He was able to do this thanks to his incredible vision and hearing. Man Ni-san was a complete monster in that fight with Gadora. I can't wait to tell mom and dad about this. So glad they told me to come here. See you soon, Ni-san. I can't wait for the emperors and the king to clash. My blood is bumping for that. The young man smirked as his glowed green as he was covered in a green and white aura as a pair of wings grew out of his body and he flew into the air. Unknown to the teen, another person was watching the scene along with the silver teen's quick departure. This was another young man with flaming pinkish-red hair with tattoos around his body. Hey. So even the emperors want some entertainment. Can't say I blame them. Let's see how you handle us, Acknowledgia. The red-scaled bastard beat Motherglare even though he was half dead. Then again I expect nothing less from the dragon that created me. I will see you soon, father. You as well, little brother. Elsewhere, near the restored mountains far off from the capital, a figure stood on top of the spire. He was a hulking giant of a man with spiky black hair and blood-red eyes. He gave a wide grin that showed his razor-sharp teeth. Acknowledgia, no Naruto. You have grown from that amusing mortal I met centuries ago. I am sure our rematch will be very exciting. After all, you have a score to settle with me, right? So I will be waiting, my old friend. The giant then grew massive demonic wings as he flew into the air and to the horizon with his dark silhouette cascading over the moons above the capital. Finally, near the grasslands around the capital, a familiar black mage watched the capital from distance. Magnificent as always, acknowledgia. No Naruto. It was late into the evening as the capital of Fury was illuminated by the lights of every tavern, store, and restaurant across the city. People drinking, eating, and celebrating with friends and loved ones to enjoy the end of this year's Grand Magic Games. This had become a tradition since the first year when the GMG was established. However, this year's after-party was shaping up to be the biggest as the celebrations had started early in the morning and have continued into the dark hours while showing a little slowdown. Man, these year's games were something else. A middle-aged man commented as he gulped down some of his ale. One of the man's friends cackled with his face nearly red. I know right. Especially with Fairy Tail's comeback. One of the other occupants in the table, a woman in her 40s, that Wendy girl was the biggest surprise of all. Who knew that little girl had it in her? The middle-aged man nodded. Not to mention the big reveal of who her father was. That was the biggest surprise of all. A waitress who nearby quickly took the empty mugs as she put newly filled ones on the table. Yeah, no one is going to look at those two the same again. The woman said with a giggle as she blushed a bit remembering Naruto's face. Hey, did you hear rumors that the mages fought a bunch of dragons and that Acknowledgia appeared to help? One of the men asked. Everyone looked at him as if he grew 2 extra heads with horns. What the hell have you been drinking to believe that crackpot of nonsense? Hell will freeze over before Acknowledgia helps humanity. There's no way the mages would accept his help, especially the fairy tale mages. The irony of this statement was staggering unbeknownst to these unaware citizens. Speaking of the mages, where are they? I heard they were invited to the king's castle for a royal feast. The middle-aged man cursed. Damn, I envy them. Those guys are probably having the time of their lives. Meanwhile at the castle. Woo! The members of Fairy Tail exclaimed. This is absolutely amazing. Wendy gushed out. Damn right it is. Pretty. Listen gushed. Eclair grumbled as she saw many people staring at her elegant dress that was a fiery red and yellow. Don't be so nervous. They're just admiring us. Mira assured. I am not used to such attention, Katya said nervously to all the looks they were getting. You get used to it after a while. The she-devil giggled. That's because you're a model with a body most would die for. The two retorted. Oi! Over here everyone. Elfman called out from his table. Gray gave Gajil a once-over. The Iron Slayer had his hair combed down into a ponytail and he was wearing an actual suit. That look does not suit you at all. He finally said. That's the last thing I want to hear from you, stripper, Gajil growled to the half-naked ice mage. The other guilds have gathered as well. Enjoy yourselves and try not to go too extreme with the festivities. Urza advised. Like that's likely to happen. Several members replied. Men should eat. Elfman cheered as he stuffed his mouth with food. Chew your food, you big oaf. Evergreen reprimanded. Elfman gulped his food down. Sorry. Such a caring sister-in-law I will have. Mira teased. Mira. The two exclaimed in unison. Wendy looked at the blushing duo in confused amusement. How long has this been going on? Mira giggled. For a while. We're just waiting for them to confirm it. Bring on the booze. Kana and Gildarts cheered in unison. Easy you two. We don't need you two passed out so early in the celebrations. Oi Kana. The card mage turned to see a familiar face approaching him. Bacchus. Wanna have another game? She challenged with a confident smirk. The drunk fighter smirked. You're on. The two cheered together. And this time I won't lose. So wild go Kana. The members of Quattro Cerberus and Gildarts cheered in unison. Meanwhile, Urza is having a very uncomfortable conversation with her mother Angelo. Irene was wearing a gorgeous black dress that looked similar to the one Urza was wearing, but the colors were mostly black, white, and a deep shade of red. So this is the young man that stole my daughter's heart? Irene asked in a teasing tone. Jelil and Urza blushed as the brunette stellar mage gulped. Why yes. Mother, please. Father already scared him. Please don't do the same. Urza begged. Oh come now, Urza, I am not that drastic. Plus your father covered all the bases. He can't stand anyone harming his red princess. Irene then gave the two a coy smile. Though please don't wait too long to give me some grandchildren to spoil. Ka-san. A red face Urza exclaimed. An equally red Jello stuttered out. I promise it won't too soon nor too far in the future. Irene clapped in excitement. Excellent. That's what I wanted to hear. Someone end my misery, please, Urza begged. Ah, the joys of embarrassing your children with their loved lives. Goldmine commented. It reminds you of our youthful days. Master Bob reminisced with a nostalgic smile. I never thought I would be able to sit in the castle of Fury for a feast. Makarov laughed. It's good to live a long life, Ujima replied. I am so glad to see you free, Eric, Kiana said in a happy tone. Cobra turned his head as he took a bite off of his pork chop. It's Cobra, Cubelios. Kiana hummed with a smile as she poked the poison slayer's chest. Then it's Kanana, Cobra-kun. Cobra blushed a bit much to the amusement of his nakama. Oh look at that, Cobra's blushing. I guess even the cold-hearted Cobra can't help but melt his heart for his woman. Serrano teased. It's love, Richard proclaimed. Piss off all of you. Cobra roared comically. Ha 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 ha. The members laughed as Kanana held Cobra from attacking them. Akame-chan slowed down on the food. Wave advised, no one will steal it from you. He's right, Nei-san. Kurome agreed. Akame shook her head. Not taking any chances. So this is the one you were talking about, Demaria? Brandish asked innocently as she held Laxus's left arm. Isn't he something? Demaria asked. The green-haired mage nodded. Yes, he is. Laxus grunted. While I appreciate the attention, I will like a little space. Demaria tilted her head in amused confusion. Not enjoying the view. I would be lying if I said no. Brandish nodded. Good. Then no complaints, Demaria said as she and Brandish snuggled into his arms. Freed chuckled in amusement. Girls. Easy with him. He's easy to crack. The lightning slayer snapped his head towards his subordinate. Freed. He's a big old softy. Bixlow teased. Softy. Tilda, Bixlow's puppets mimicked. Laxus gave the two a dead glare. You two are dead. Demaria and Brandish giggled. Don't worry, we'll treat him very nicely. Brandish promised. I won't go easy on you two, Laxus warned. I hope you won't. The two said in unison. Bixlow gave a fake sniff. They grow up so fast, don't they, Freed? The script mage nodded. It's like he just left the nest. Grr. See, even Zeke agrees. Your mother told me so much about you. You were such a curious little thing about the world around you. It made me nostalgic about how Wendy used to be. Anna gushed as she sighed warmly. Anna is wearing attire similar to what she wore 400 years ago, basically her attire in Chapter 512. Lucy gave an awkward laugh. Oh, I hope she didn't say anything too embarrassing. I wonder if this is how a parent embarrasses their child, Katya asked with a sweat drop. I hope you're ready for your turn, Katya. Momen. The brunette sighed. Don't remind me. The yellow bird turned to their other companion. What will we do, Eclair? I think we will stay. Something tells me I will get my answers from Naruto about my past. Eclair affirmed as the other two nodded. Anna-sama. Lucy-sama. The two Heartfilia women turned to see the Princess of Fury heading towards them. Hisui Haim. You look absolutely stunning. The green-haired princess bowed in gratitude. Thank you, Anna-sama. Hisui then frowned as she bit her lip. I want to personally thank you for helping my family and kingdom. Even though we caused so much trouble for all of you, she said in a regretful tone. Don't worry about it. I am kinda used to trouble since I have joined Fairy Tail. Lucy replied. Anna shrugged. I have been used to trouble ever since I met my lovely husband. Both girls looked at the older blonde. Is it that bad? Hisui asked. The blonde giggled. Let's just say that we used to think that Naruto had the worst luck due to how many enemies he made in his life. We actually considered making an album that lists all of his enemies. The two girls' sweat dropped in unison. How thick would it be? Hisui finally asked with some trepidation. Anna tilted her head in thought. A few volumes. I think. This answer caused the girls' sweat drops to grow. Hisui was concerned at the number of individuals who would want Naruto dead. Lucy was just concerned about the trouble that Fairy Tail will have to face in the future. Meanwhile, Wendy, Sharia, and Romeo were looking in wonder at some fantastic desserts at the party. In particular, the three were entranced by a very delicious-looking jello. It looks like a jewel. Wendy complimented. I can even see it sparkle, Sharia said. I wonder what it tastes like. Romeo asked. Let's find out, Wendy said as the three took a bite out of the shiny jello. So good. The three said in unison. Damn, it's amazing. Wendy turned to see Romeo and Sharia gushing at how delicious the jello was. They look so cute. Wendy blushed a bit as she shook her head. Not now, Dark. Looks so good. A voice spoke behind Wendy. The brunette and Romeo jumped in fright as they turned to see Mavis staring at the dessert with drool coming down her lips. Showtime. The two exclaimed in unison. What's wrong, you two? Sharia asked in confusion. The two mages shook their heads. Nothing. I forgot that no one besides guild members can see them. Except for Dad Naruto. Wendy and Romeo thought. Careful, don't want her to think you're crazy. Dark teased. Wendy, have you seen your father or Natsu? Mavis asked. Wendy hummed in thought. Not that you mention it. No, I haven't. Wendy. Romeo. I feel a chill near my shoulder. Auntie. Ease up please. Wendy said slowly so Mavis only heard. Mavis pouted. Okay. With Mermaid Heel, the girls were enamored by their team leader, Kagura. The sword mage wore a beautiful sleeveless, violet, and gold dress that showed her beautiful blossom. Her hair was tied in a ponytail and with a ribbon around her hair. Wow, Kagura, you look absolutely stunning. Arana gushed. Kagura grunted with a blush across her face. I told you this doesn't suit me, she replied with her eyes closed. What are you talking about? You look amazing. Beth countered. You underestimate yourself too much. Kagura looked down so everyone could not see her bright red blush. The other members of Mermaid Hell giggled in amusement. One of the members then noticed a certain mood demon behind the embarrassed sword mage. Sela, come on out from behind Kagura-chan. The shy moon demon shook her head. No, this is too much for me. You were standing in front of an entire stadium filled with people. Most of the members protested. That was different. Plus I didn't have to wear a dress. Sela replied, though that argument was rather weak as her normal attire was equally if not more revealing than her current attire. Sela's attire was similar to Kagura's but the colors were more of a dark navy blue and violet combo. Risley gained a large smirk. Oh, I see. You're embarrassed that Naruto will see you. Eep. Sela squealed as she stiffened. The other members of her guild smiled. Ah. How cute. Arana teased. I am sure Naruto will appreciate the dress. I wonder if Kagura is feeling the same. Beth asked. Kagura froze at the mention of her being courted by Naruto. You did seem flustered after Wendy's talk. Miliana teased. Kagura turned to glare at the snickering members of her guild. Please don't remind me. The embarrassed girl begged. Hooray, we finally have something on Kagura. And since Sela likes the same guy, we can help both of them get the man of their dreams. Here. All the members cheered. Oh, someone help me. The two embarrassed girls begged in unison. What seems to be trouble, girls? All the members of Mermaid Heel looked to see their two guild masters approaching. Anna-sama. Irene-sama, they said in unison. Are you enjoying embarrassing Lucy and Urza? Miliana asked. The two women smirked. Oh yes, we've had plenty of fun with the girls, Anna said. And hopefully many more days to come. Irene continued. Have either of you two seen Naruto-sama? Sela asked. Anna and Irene shook their heads. Actually no. We haven't seen him yet. Oh, Sela muttered as she looked down. Kagura also seemed to be a bit disappointed as well, though she hid it better. Anna brought the sullen demon into a hug. Not to worry, Sela. Naruto promised he would show up. My guess. He'll probably come in soon enough. Irene also brought Kagura into a hug as well, much to her chagrin. You don't need to hide how you feel, Kagura-chan. I know you wanted to impress my husband as well. Kagura blushed as she buried her face into Irene's shoulder. No, I did not. She moaned out. The Dragon Queen giggled in amusement. I have never seen this side of you, Kagura. You usually only show it for cute things. It's so adorable. Oh, how my husband loves attracting tsuneres to him. I guess Urza will be calling you auntie or perhaps sister, as you two are similar in age, technically. Please stop. This is embarrassing. Kagura begged, much to the amusement of the other members of the guild, except Sela, who was equally embarrassed due to Anna's teasing. Don't worry, I am sure he'll notice you too. And we'll be willing to help. Sela could no longer handle all the teasing, quickly rushed out and blindly ran, right into an equally embarrassed Kagura that finally got out of Irene's hold. Oh. The two grunted as they slammed into something hard. Ow. The two girls said in unison. Sorry, Kagura. Sela moaned from Kagura's back. The sword mage sighed. It's okay. As she mumbled her reply, Kagura felt herself on something hard and warm. What did I crash into? She asked out loud. Ahem. A familiar voice grunted. The girls' eyes widened as they quickly stood up. The two blushed as they realized they had crashed into Naruto. The blonde king was wearing a dark blue, almost black coat with 3 separate coattails. A stylized white serpentine pattern with the head going down the left shoulder and the tail down the right. The coat has a silver lining running across the attire with a silky silver flower blossom pattern decorating the interior lining, and the cuffs had 5 buttoned straps with silver lining, with the shoulders also having straps on them. Underneath the coat, the blonde wears a navy blue ascot wrapped around his neck. Below that, Naruto wore a long-sleeve navy blue formal shirt that was covered by a black sleeveless vest. Finally, Naruto was wearing charcoal gray fingerless gloves, black formal pants, and dark boots covered by teal gaiters with several straps. Naruto's attire is Virgil's from Devil May Cry 5 with a few details from the one in DMC3 and DMC4 SE. Naruto smiled at the two tomato-red girls. Are you two all right? Why, yes. The two steered out in unison. Naruto smiled as he looked at the girls' attire, which caused their blushes to increase. You both are very beautiful tonight. Naruto complimented. Thank you, Naruto-sama. Kagura and Sela replied. Please. Simply call me, Naruto. I prefer it that way. Naruto smirked as he leaned forward to whisper into the two girls' ears. I will say that despite what I said during our talk from the previous night, I am not against your courting. Perhaps after this ball and we have settled back into a sense of normalcy, we can learn about one another, in a more private location. Kagura and Sela shivered at Naruto's hot breath near their ears as he leaned back to hear their reply. I would like that, Sela said with a crimson-red face. Kagura turned her head as she tried to hide her blush. I would not be completely against. Naruto smirked in amusement at the two's reactions, especially Kagura's. Oh, how cute, she has a tsundere side. This ought to be as amusing as Tsukimi was with her affections towards me, he thought nostalgically. Well, I must go to my wives. But I hope I may offer my hand in a dance later on. Of course. The two said in unison. Naruto smirked. Then it's a date. Naruto walked towards his wives as he noticed them with coy grins. The two hummed in amusement. Naruto smirked. Now what are those smiles for? He asked. We both saw you with the two girls. I must were pleased you're taking their interest with you so enthusiastically. Anna said. Naruto shrugged. I promised Hinata and Wendy that I would try to live again. Which included falling in love again. Plus I doubt you two would enjoy me breaking their hearts. Oh, we would break your bones, Anna said cheerfully. And maybe some other parts. Then we get you to apologize before letting you heal very slowly. Irene followed up. Naruto chuckled. And I thought I would be the sadistic one in this relationship. The two shrugged. Oh, we picked up a few things from you in these past decades, Anna explained. Naruto nodded. Fair enough. He then brought the two into a tight embrace. 14 years ago I would never dream of being here with the two of you again. And I would not change it for the world. Anna and Irene smiled as they returned the hug. Neither would we. Hello everyone. A familiar voice shouted. The three turned to see the 5 dragons in their human forms walking into the ballroom. Well, you know to clean up very nicely. Naruto complimented. To be fair, Metallicana, Wislegia, and Skiadrum were usually the ones that had more etiquette compared to other dragons. Anna teased. Igneel merely pouted as mumbled indignantly. Hey, what about me? Grandini demanded. Oh, you and my wives were always a trio, Gran. I don't think I need to explain to you. Naruto explained. HMPH. The Sky Queen pouted. Speaking of which, you look stunning, Grandini. Anna complimented. Yes, though her normal outfit also showed her natural beauty quite as well. Irene giggled. Naruto snorted. Oh yes, especially how it resembled. Please don't remind me, Grandini begged with a large blush. By this time Wendy showed up to see her two mothers. She looked enamored by the Sky Dragon's appearance. Wow, Ka-san, you look amazing. I bet Daddy will surely go head over heels for you. Wendy. Grandini moaned. Oh, I am definitely feeling something, Naruto replied. Grandini glared at Naruto, but before she could say anything, Irene spoke up. Okay, we can tease Gran later. Especially in more private quarters. Irene. Grandini exclaimed. Anna giggled. Oh, yes we will. Oi, don't I get a say in this? Grandini asked. No. The two ladies of the apocalypse said in unison. Grandini glared at Naruto. You're not helping. The blonde king shrugged. Like I would be ever to sway them. You know when they set themselves to do something, they won't stop. Nothing I ever said would change that. You're so insufferable when it comes to them. The Sky Queen grumbled. Naruto gave her a coy smile. Play your cards right, Grand, and you may join them. Grandini became an atomic red. Ah, she stuttered out much to everyone else's amusement. Meanwhile, Sting was attempting to celebrate with the other Slayers. Natsu, I have a toast for us to share. The White Slayer said cheerfully. He isn't here, Gajil replied. What? Sting exclaimed comically. But I had a speech planned and everything. Rogue shrugged. Bad timing I guess. Fro thinks so too. The Exceed said. Gajil looked at the Shadow Slayer. Rios. Rogue shook his head. My name is Rogue. That's who I am now. Wendy came over to her fellow Slayers along with the humanoid dragons, Anna, Irene, and her father. This weird Natsu can't be found anywhere, she said. This got the three Slayers' attention. I thought for sure he'd be with you Igneel-san, Sting said. Igneel shook his head. Nope. Surprisingly the brat left before any of us were done. The Fire King turned to his king. Naruto, you sure you have no idea where he is? Igneel asked. Naruto merely shook his head. No. The last time I sensed him, he was heading to this location. My guess. He's somewhere planning something. Hopefully nothing too destructive. Wendy and Gajil thought, but deep down they knew exactly what was going to happen. Slam. Suddenly, everyone quieted down as they turned to see Najanda above on the canopy looking down at them. Quiet all of you. His Majesty will now make his appearance. She announced. As everyone stayed silent for the arrival of the King of Fury. However, to the shock of everyone in the ballroom, the person that came out was not King Toma, but Natsu with the crown on his head. Bow down to me, my loyal subjects. For I am here. The Fire Slayer exclaimed loudly. The entire audience shouted. Natsu lifted his arms outward. I am the king now. Gagagagagag. Urza merely facepalmed. Oh, for the love of. Makarov was merely shaking as his hair fell off his head. Ga. Master Makarov shouted in concern. That's my boy. Igneel shouted in pride. Don't encourage him, Igneel. Grandini admonished, though the other dragons were snickering in amusement. Anna and Irene shook their heads as they reminisce how energetic the boy was when he was little and still is now. Suddenly a loud voice began to laugh uncontrollably and they all turned to see Naruto bursting. Ha 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 ha. Nice prank there. That brings me back, he said in an amused and nostalgic tone. Several minutes later. Once everything had calmed and Natsu reluctantly gave back the crown and went through a quick change of clothes, the king gave his commemoration speech. He thanked the wizards for their spectacular performance in the Grand Magic Games and for their heroic deeds during the dragon invasion. This feast is to celebrate the mages, but a thank you to all of them. This feast was also to show the new allies they gained in Acnologia and the newly revealed dragons. It was a feast to commemorate a new age. The age of humans and dragons living together once again. Naruto looked rather uncomfortable to all the attention, much to several people's amusement. It was after this speech that the festivities resumed. Once nearly everyone had their fair share of the feast, the attendants began taking partners to the dance floor. Makarov, Ujima, and most of the other masters were smiling ear to ear as they watched the mages, young and old, were enjoying each other's company as they danced within the ballroom. Ah, to be young again. Makarov sighed in bliss. Reminds of your younger years, Maki. Master Bob teased. I have lived for well over 80 years. And seeing this where everyone is enjoying each other's company and able to work together. It feels like my brats are beginning to fly out of the nest. Feeling nostalgic? Goldmine asked. Makarov nodded. Oh yes, it reminds me of our younger years when we were all part of Fairy Tail. The former members sighed in nostalgia. Those were some good years back in the day. Goldmine said. Regretful, Goldmine? Makarov asked with a raised eyebrow. The Cerberus master shook his head. Oh no. I am quite content with how my life has gone. I have no complaints. I have a great life and I have a wonderful guild that I can eventually trust to the next generation. Master Bob said. The Blue Pegasus master turned to the Titan mage. What about you, Maki? Any plans for choosing for a successor? He asked. Makarov shook his head. Considering what Guildarts did to me, I am willing to postpone any kind of retirement for a bit. However, if I have to choose someone, Urza or Laxus would be my choice. Those two are the only ones I can trust to keep the guild intact and stop it from self-imploding. You could always go with the twin master path that Mermaid Heel has. It seems to be working with them quite well. Ujima suggested. Makarov scratched his chin in thought. Maybe, but I will have to speak with them later on the subject. Don't hold that talk for too long, Maki, Perliuzica warned. I am not that old. I am quite fit to still be a master. Makarov shouted indignantly before he began to go into a coughing fit. The others merely watched with sweat drops. That cough says otherwise, Makarov. Goldmine said in a worried tone. Makarov waved off the looks he was getting. Calm yourselves. I am well aware I should choose a successor soon. But I will like to see how they grow in these coming months before making a decision. I am surprised you didn't consider Naruto. Technically, he's not a member of my guild, and even if he was, I doubt he would accept, especially since he is the Dragon King, Makarov explained. Plus he was not sure how the rest of his guild would feel about the decision. If I recall, 7 dragons don't make much for a kingdom, even if you also include the slayers. Goldmine remarked. Let's call this an old man's intuition. I have a feeling that dragons will be coming back soon. Makarov explained. Speaking of the Dragon King, Naruto seems to enjoy this dance the most. Master Bob said. The group turned to see several Narutos around the dance floor with a different partner. Damn, clones make things easier. Goldmine envied. Looks like Naruto is not the only one enjoying the use of clones, Perliuzica remarked with an amused tone. Everyone silently chuckled as they saw Wendy with 2 different dance partners. Makarov shook his head. Like father, like daughter, I suppose. Things are definitely going to be more interesting when we head back to Magnolia. A sullen Sting was looking softly at all the mages dancing with one another. Fro was keeping him company as the Exceed cheered for Rogue as he danced with Minerva. The White Dragon Slayer would have been perfectly happy staying on the sidelines and watching everyone enjoy themselves. Fortunately, life had different plans for the young blonde. Sting turned to see a brunette girl in a yellow dress approaching him. If he remembered correctly, her name was Miliana. However, he quickly sweat dropped as he saw the feline mage tightly hugging the 3 Exceeds of Fairy Tail as she sang a merry tune about cats. Hey, you're Miliana, right? Sting asked. That's right. Miliana replied. So what are you doing with all those Exceed? Oh, just hugging these adorable kittens. The cat-like mage gushed. Sting's sweat dropped. I can see that. Fro is a cute cat as well. The Exceed said. Miliana immediately squealed and clomped him along with the other 3. Yes, you are. Sting watched in awkward silence as Miliana continued to hug the 4 Exceed until she paused and looked at him in confusion. Now why are you here by your lonesome? She asked curiously. Sting shrugged. I'm not much of a dancer, so I am fine just watching the festivities. Plus no one is available as a partner. Miliana gave him a Cheshire smile. Oh, I wouldn't be too sure about that. She dropped the 4 exceed and grabbed Sting and began dragging him to the dance floor. Come on. Let's dance. Wait, I suck at it. Sting tried to protest, but Miliana would not budge. Don't be so shy, I'll lead you, Miliana assured. The White Dragon Slayer sighed as they reached the dance. No way of getting out, might as well get this over with. Don't be mad if I step on you, Sting warned. Miliana giggled and gave him a cheerful smile. I am already expecting it. Sting couldn't help but smile at the girl's positive deposition. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Gray-sama, I am surprised you accepted my proposal, Juvia said in a joyous tone. Gray rolled his eyes. Well, my immediate partner was taken, so I needed to take another. Juvia puckered her cheeks in faux annoyance. So mean. Gray chuckled in amusement. I'm kidding. Juvia continued to pout. You better be. I never expected you to be such a dancer, Natsu. I guess those lessons with Urza helped out. Lucy teased. Natsu cringed remembering those lessons with the red-haired mage. Please don't remind me. I still have sore spots from the last time she spun me, he whined. Lucy rolled her eyes. You are such an old man, Natsu. Natsu pouted. Well, that isn't off the record considering how old I really am. The blonde bombshell looked to see Natsu deep in thought. It's not every day you hear that you're originally from 400 years in the past. She wondered how the other slayers are taking the news and just what is going through Natsu's head. Meanwhile, Natsu was unsure how to feel about learning that he was originally from 400 years in the past. If he had to be honest, it does not bother him that much. He has no memory of anything that happened back. Perhaps that is a blessing in disguise for him. But he still feels that there is some part of his past that he has to remember, and why does he feel that it has to do with the power he used against future Rogue? Cursed flames, Natsu mused. He feels a bit warm in his stomach as the words resonate with his body. Something was scratching at the back of his mind that he should know where these flames came from, but whenever he tried to reach a breakthrough, it disappears. It was frustrating to be so close, but so far at the same time. There was also the frustration he was feeling that his power may have a connection to Zerf. Something in him told him that Zerf was connected to this power, but he had no desire to investigate that connection. Hell, he was hesitant to try and use that power again, especially after what it cost him the first time. Natsu turned to Lucy, who was looking at him with her big brown eyes. He lost her to that bastard. Future version or not, he failed to protect his partner. His nakama. He was too weak and that power barely managed to help him. He needed to get stronger. He won't fail again. And he knew 2 people that could help with that. Natsu, what's wrong? Lucy asked in concern. Natsu gave her a deep stare that worried her. That worry turned to surprise as Natsu brought her into a tight hug. Lucy blushed as she felt the warmness emitting from his body and wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Nothing, he said. Just thinking about how I will get stronger so that I never anything happens to you. Never again. He swore. Lucy blushed at Natsu's words as she was touched at how protective he was of her. It reminded her of how Naruto reacted to her injuries. Just her luck to have such overprotective dragons close to her. She wrapped her arms around his back. Thank you, Natsu. Who knew you could be such a dancer? Did my mom teach you some moves? Ultir asked as she danced with her partner. Was many things, Ultir. A dancer she was not. Leon replied. The time mage giggled. You know, I don't know much about her. It was mostly word of mouth I heard about her. I was wondering if you and Gray would mind telling me some stories. Of course we would. Though I have to ask. Why don't you ask Naruto? Oh, I plan to ask him as well. I can tell my mother meant a lot to him. Leon hummed in amusement. Sounds like someone is eager to speak with their father. He teased. Ultir snorted in amusement. Well, you're not wrong. I've already been practically adopted by him, and I would not say I am against it. Leon raised an intrigued eyebrow. Ho! I never really had a father figure. The closest would be Hades, though most would agree he would not be the best father figure. Most would say the same about Acnologia. An amused Leon retorted. Most don't know him either. Ultir countered in amusement. She turned to see one of the Narutos on the dance floor with Anna. It's probably the first time I've had an adult figure worry about me like he does. Or lecture me as if I was his child. It felt weird, but nice as well. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. Ultir shook her head. No, he wouldn't. The daughter of gave Leon a sincere smile. I appreciate you listening to me drabble on. Leon smiled. It's the least I could do. Ultir gave a sly smirk. At least I know the one crushing on my daughter is such a gentleman. She teased. Leon tensed as he blushed slightly. You noticed, huh? I am her mother, so I know when someone is interested in her. I am pretty sure she noticed your glances, so who knows? Leon gave an exasperated sigh. Considering she is now unofficially acknowledged as granddaughter, I am going to be on thin ice. Try being his daughter, let's see how that feels, Ultir replied. Then Natsu, Jelal, and perhaps Romeo and or Sharia have my sympathies. Leon joked. Ultir gave a false glare. Don't be a pervert. Leon just gave her a smirk. Like you weren't thinking the same thing. Grr, Gajil growled as he glared at his father, who was giving him a smug look of satisfaction. Don't be such a grouch. Levi admonished. I am not. Gajil denied. I just hate that gloating look on that bastard's face. Levi blushed as she attempted to give a sly look. That wouldn't have to do with him calling me your mate, right? Gajil blushed as he turned his head. None at all. Levi merely giggled at this. Meanwhile, Evergreen and Elfman were dancing together but looked in different directions to avoid staring at one another. You know, the two of you could smile a bit more. It makes it more enjoyable. Listen, teased. Be quiet, the couple exclaimed. Did you ever think we would ever be like this? Urza asked Jelal, her dance partner. Only in my dreams, he replied with a smile. Urza giggled. Aren't you the charmer? She teased. I am hoping to make a good impression. To me or my father? Urza asked. Jelal looked sheepishly at his partner. To be honest, both. Urza hummed as she laid her head on Jalal's shoulder. I can't argue with that. I hope I can accommodate you for the next dance, Bixlow told his dance partner, Brandish. You're doing quite fine and your so-called babies are cute. Brandish giggled. Though I must thank your leader. The two turned to see Demaria and Laxus dancing rather enthusiastically. I haven't seen Demaria enjoy herself this much in a long time. Bixlow raised his head high. Well, my Laxus has always been amazing. But now, he's just the best. And I know the others will agree as well. I know the feeling. Freed hummed. You know it's rude to stare. Bullet lectured. I am just making sure that Laxus is doing well with his partner, Freed affirmed. Someone is clingy to their leader. The wielder of Incurcio teased. I am protective of him. All of us are. Now that is loyalty I can respect and desire. Wait, what? Freed asked in confusion. Nothing. Nothing. A few feet away, Wave watched the interaction with an awkward chuckle. Looks like Bullet has found a crush. Never thought he would find anyone that could handle him, Karome replied. Guess he has. Karome looked at Wave with a coy smirk. Like how you handle me. Wave nearly choked on his air. Please don't say out loud. You know how your sister is. But it's fun to see you squirm. Karome teased. You and your sister are such sadists to me, Wave muttered as he continued to dance with his girlfriend while watching his armored partner dance with his potential crush. He also took notice of Lubbock dancing with a familiar silver-haired commander. Wendy Clone 1. Hey, Otu-sama, Wendy asked the clone of her father she was dancing with. Yes, my chibi Haim. Naruto teased as he saw his daughter pout cutely. Is there anything else you're hiding from me and everyone else? Naruto raised an eyebrow. You're going to have to be a bit more specific. Wendy narrowed her eyes. You said we need to be ready for war. But I know you're still keeping something from us. Like there is something you don't want to talk about or you're too scared to. Naruto stayed quiet as he heard his daughter's thoughts. It will never cease to amaze him how perspective his daughter like her mother was with him. It was like both could tell when something was different about him. He mentally shook his head as he refocused on his daughter. Wendy. Naruto began as he tried to articulate what he wanted to say. You must understand that it may seem odd for me of all people to hold on to secrets, there is a reason why I keep some things to myself until the appropriate time. Wendy raised an eyebrow to that. Some secrets are not really ones as they begin with a theory I may have. The dragons are a prime example of this. I was not 100% sure they were in you slayers, let alone where they could have been. That's why I kept that to myself until I confirmed it and promised to tell you and others. And I kept my promise. Wendy rolled her eyes. Yeah. Though a little warning that they would have come out of our bodies would have been nice. Naruto rolled his eyes. Then comes the secrets that are pertaining to specific individuals. Until I speak with said individuals to get their consent to even speak about the topic. What's the third reason? Wendy asked. Naruto sighed. The third reason is that I have a theory on a possible future threat, but until I am 100% sure about it, I won't bring it up as I do not want to mortify any of you. I want to be ready for any and all possible threats, but I want to also be sure that the threats are coming. But I will continue to get you all ready for whatever that may come. Wendy looked a bit concerned. You're not talking about Zerf, are you? Naruto shook his head. No, I am thinking about someone else. But I won't know until I investigate further. How are we supposed to be ready for that? Naruto gave his daughter a confident smirk. We will be ready, my dear. I have a plan to bring some old friends back into the front lines. Wendy looked at her father in suspicion. Just what are you planning? Naruto gave a fanged grin. Oh my Chibi-hime, where's the fun in spoiling the surprise? Wendy pouted. Meanie. Naruto rolled his eyes and smirked. Now let's get into some more positive topics. At this, his smirk turned mischievous. Now how are doing with your boyfriend and girlfriend? Wendy's face went completely red. Tou-san. She whined as Naruto laughed. Life was going well for the father-daughter duo. Wendy cloned too. You're an amazing dancer, Wendy. Romeo complimented. Wendy giggled. Why thank you, Romeo. You're not so bad yourself, she replied. Romeo chuckled awkwardly. I wouldn't be so sure. My dad barely taught me anything. Plus I am sure I stepped on you a few times. Oh come on. You're not doing so bad. I am enjoying our dance. Wendy said. Speaking of our dance, where did you learn how to dance, Wendy? Romeo asked in a curious tone. Wendy gave a big smile. Why my dad gave me lessons. Romeo looked a bit surprised. You know. I kinda expected that answer, but it's still surprising to hear. Yeah I know, but my dad was full of surprises during our training trip. He wanted to have some quality father-daughter time. So he thought he could teach me dancing. Wendy explained as she smiled at the memories. At first I was really nervous as I was never much of a dancer, and would only do it for a mission. But my dad said he used to be like that until mom and auntie got their hands on him. Wendy giggled. After that he got me to try it out. It took a few lessons, but I managed to learn a bit. Romeo's sweat dropped. I will never get used to the fact that Acknowledgia is your father and taught you how to dance. I am pretty sure nothing of our current situation is normal, Wendy said in a cheerful tone. The two stayed in relative silence as Romeo seemed to debate something within his mind. Though Wendy noticed his deep thinking due to the frown on his face. A jewel for your thoughts. Romeo blinked as he shook his head. Sorry. I didn't mean to ignore you. Wendy shook her head. Don't worry about it. I know you didn't mean it. So what was on your mind? Romeo blushed as he tried to stammer out a response. Well YYUC I was wondering if you could. Wendy tilted her head cutely, if I could. Romeo closed his eyes and said, if you teach me how to dance. Wendy smiled at Romeo. That's what got you so flustered. Romeo's blush became a darker shade of red. Well, it was not just that. He swallowed thickly. I was wondering if we could do it somewhere private after we hung out a bit and got something to eat or walk around the city. Wendy's eyebrows went up as a blush dusted her cheeks. Meanwhile Dark was cheering her to take the dive. Romeo, are you asking me out on a date? Romeo was completely crimson. Why yes. Wendy smiled. Sure. Romeo blinked a few times before they widened. Wait really? Wendy giggled. Of course silly. I just have one condition. Romeo nodded rapidly. Sure. Anything. Wendy smiled. You also have to take Sharia on a date and have a date with the two of us. Romeo blinked a few times before his blush came back full force. Original Wendy. You are amazing Wendy-chan. You truly know about love. Sharia cheered. Wendy giggled with a blush. Thank you, Sharia-chan. I am having so much fun, Wendy. I feel like I have met someone that can truly connect to. In just about our magic. Sharia then gained a bright blush. And maybe not as just as Nakama. She whispered. Unfortunately for her, Wendy heard her as the Sky Dragon Slayer blushed a bit. That blush became neon red when Dark told her what her clone accomplished with Romeo. Wendy shook her head to rid herself of the blush, but Sharia caught it. Oh. The Sky God Slayer teased. What's that blush about? Wendy gulped. My father embarrassing me, and let's just say that my clone made a move on Romeo. Sharia's face dropped. You like him, don't you? Wendy nodded. Sharia was in complete turmoil. She thought she had finally found love. Someone she could connect to in a way she could not with Leon or her cousin. But Wendy, there was something different about her. When they first met, she felt something new. Something exciting. Maybe it was their magic or maybe it was something else. But even if they couldn't that connection, they will still be friends, and if that was all this love was, then so be it. She just wanted to maintain this connection with Wendy. Wendy seems to sense something was off with Sharia and decided to help get her back to normal. There is one condition to that. Sharia blinked before looking at Wendy. What's that? She asked curtly. Wendy smiled as she leaned in, which caused Sharia to blush a bit as she whispered into Sharia's ear. The Sky God Slayer froze as Wendy leaned back as she allowed Sharia to fully comprehend what she told her. As for Sharia, it took her several minutes to process what she was just told. When her mind finally caught up with what she was just told, her entire body went completely red. I, you, Romeo, me, you, us. Sharia could not even form a coherent thought, which Wendy found rather adorable. So what do you say? Wendy asked. Sharia shook her head as she took a few deep breaths before looking up at Wendy with a bright smile. Okay. Naruto Clone 1. Ow. Are you okay? Naruto asked Kagura as she stumbled on her turn. I told you, Kagura whined. I'm horrible at wearing these types of dresses and shoes. All I am good at is fighting and using a sword. Naruto chuckled. Tsukimi said something similar to him when they danced for the first time. Life really works in strange ways. Oh, come now. You're not horrible. Though I am surprised Anna and Irene didn't give you lessons. They actually did, but that doesn't mean I am remembering anything right now. It's not a shame to be embarrassed about what we can or can't do. Kagura gave him a skeptical look. Have you been in a situation like this? I'll be honest, I was downright scared of ever dancing with one of my lovers and embarrassing myself. Anna and Irene were greatly amused by my fear and forced me to learn from them. They can't take no for an answer when it involves you. Kagura quipped. Naruto shook his head. No, they cannot. The blonde dragon then noticed that Kagura was keeping up with the dance rhythm. Hey, look at that, you're not tripping. Kagura blinked as she looked down at herself and saw that he was right. She was able to keep up and match his rhythm and the music's rhythm. See, take away a bit of your tension and you can do it. Naruto complimented. Kagura blushed a bit at her lip as she held her head down as her bangs covered her eyes. Thank you, she said shyly. My pleasure, my dear sword princess. Kagura looked completely red with wide eyes. Naruto raised an amused eyebrow. What? Too soon? The sword mage shook her head. No, I like it, but can you not say out loud? It would be too embarrassing. Tilda, Naruto hummed as he caressed Kagura's cheek, which caused steam to bellow out of her head. I don't know. You are too cute with that blush on you. I think I like you like this. B. Baka. She stammered. All in all, it was a good start to a budding future relationship between the two. Naruto Clone 2. I see you are a graceful dancer. Thank you, Naruto-sama. I learned from many books and practiced on my own. Anna-sama and Irene-sama also helped a lot. Sela said in a very happy tone. Naruto gave her a playfully annoyed grin. I thought I said you don't have to give me that suffix. Sela shook her head in defiance. But I feel it's appropriate to give you it. Naruto sweat drops at the response. Oh great. I have another Kazuhana. Or would Anna and Irene say Tsukiyumi? I must say your dancing reminds me a lot of my dear, Hinata. Sela looked up in surprise. Really? Naruto nodded. Yes. She was as graceful as the moon and her movements were fluid and flexible like water. Sela stayed quiet for a few seconds before gaining a very wide smile to spread across her lips. I thank you for such a great compliment. I know how highly you regard Hinata. I thank you for your words. But I am merely stating the truth. I still wish to thank you. Naruto sighed, knowing he was not going to change her mind. As you wish. Naruto Clone 3. Mirajane hummed in delight. Who knew that the Black Dragon could be such an amazing dancer? As I told my darling Wendy, in the 400 years I have been alive I found other activities to occupy my attention besides destroying everything in my line of sight. Mira raised a curious eyebrow. Does this include dancing? Naruto shook his head with a smile. Not exactly. I learned how to dance from my wives and my draconian mother, he replied with a nostalgic tone. Were these sessions voluntary or required? Mira teased. I will be honest, it was a bit of both. Saphira would say I needed to be a properly educated man if I was going to court Anna and Irene. She said she will not have her beloved son embarrass himself and his future mates. Anna and Irene wanted to share those moments with me and they found it amusing. The other girls followed suit after. Mira giggled. Era. Who knew Acnologia would enjoy being dominated? Naruto rolled his eyes. Very amusing. They shared a laugh as they continued to dance. The blonde king then decided to ask something that he had been wondering about his current partner. Mirajane. Yes. Can I ask you a question? Mira nodded. Of course. Why did you look so worried about me after the invasion? In fact, out of all the members of the guild, besides my daughters, you have been the one most actively trying to be close to me. Why? Mira blinked as she never expected Naruto to ask her this. Though maybe it has to do with his isolation. He's been so alone for so long for someone that knows nothing about history to be so kind to him and continue to do even so after it came out, it must be very confusing. Because Naruto. Mira began as she gave him a warm smile. It's the right thing to do. At his confused frown, she elaborated. I won't say much now, but I to an extent understand what you have been through. I understand what it's like to be hated for something beyond your control. To be seen as nothing but a monster. I could empathize with your plight. And I could see why you ended the way you did. But despite all that you still try to be there for your daughters. And you went through all hell to save all of us and protect us from the dragons. I could see you are not the monster that attacked us on Tenro, and after hearing your history, I know who you are. She raised her hands to grasp his cheeks, which slightly startled him, due to not expecting this action. You are a person that was deprived of love and acceptance throughout most of his life and you lost it for some time due to mistakes you made. But the fact you chose to change. That you chose to reconnect to those who were close to you. You did not falter. You did not let your fears and insecurities control you. Mira looked down at this point. Like I did. Naruto frowned. Are you referring to what happened to Lisana? Mira nodded. I gave up being in the front lines. I became a waitress for the guild. I became a rock of support for the guild. I will never regret that, but it came at the cost of my fighting spirit. Had I kept it, a lot of pain my nakama suffered could have been avoided. But it took my brother nearly dying for me to get back into fighting. I should have. Mira, Naruto stated calmly. Mira paused as she looked up to see Naruto's gentle and sympathetic gaze. Mira, you should not have to be obligated to fight. No one should be forced to fight or do anything they have no desire to do. It does not make you weak for not wanting to fight. Fear is something we can all feel, Mira, even I have. You faced that fear and became stronger from it. You became the person you are now. Mira looked up at Naruto. No one had ever told her something like this. Her guild never bothered her for quitting the front lines. They always were so understanding and supportive of her. Hell, even Laxus during his arrogant years never bothered her about it. But this was the first time since maybe Makarov that someone called her stronger for coming back. She gave the blonde a dazzling smile. Now you sound like Master Makarov. I honestly never expected the Dragon King to say something like that. Naruto smirked. You must understand that despite who I am now, there was once a time when I did not enjoy fighting. All I cared about was protecting my nakama. I only joined the civil war to protect my comrades, but for a time I did not want to fight. I just wanted to live in peace with my loved ones. But during one raid, we all nearly died. I could have stopped it if I was stronger. So from then on, I kept on fighting until it was one of the only things I knew how to do. Then I screwed up and you know how history sees me now. And how do Wendy and the other girls feel about this? All of my girls seem to have the desire to fight and become stronger so that they can protect their nakama. Wendy was different. She never liked fighting, she simply wanted to be helpful and protect her nakama. I told her I wanted to train her, but it was her choice to accept it. She chooses to accept my offer because she wanted to learn how to fight. But I would never force her to fight, as no one should be forced to do something that they don't wish to do. I saw that happen with my wife, Hinata, and I was not going to let that happen again with Wendy. Mira couldn't help but give Naruto a warm smile. You really are a good father. A girl could almost fall for that. Naruto lifted an eyebrow. Is this you admitting you are interested in me? Well, I will say yes, but I would like to know a person first before I make any commitments with any man. I hope this is okay with you. Naruto smiled as he brought her closer for a slow dance. I can work with that. Let's just enjoy this for now. Mira smiled. I agree. Naruto Clone 4. You have a lot of questions, Naruto remarked. Eclair nodded. Yes, I have so many, but I am unsure where to start. As I told my daughter before, the beginning is a good place to start. Eclair glared at him and the smirk he was giving her was not helping. I don't have a lot of memories of my past. All I have are bits and pieces, but they are too incoherent to make any sense of. But I know one thing for sure. When I saw you, I felt my mind was on fire and then the images began appearing, but I could not figure anything out from them. But I knew one thing. You may be the key to my memories. So I have to ask, do you know who I am? Naruto continued to stare at her as he thought about how to approach this. He wanted to slowly ease her in and indulge her curiosity for now, and save the more serious revelations for a more private location. To appeal to some of your curiosity, I have to ask something. Are you aware of the power you wielded during the invasion? Eclair thought back to how she wielded those majestic flames and how they formed into the shape of a bird. She also remembered what the dragon she fought called them. The power of the phoenix. Naruto nodded. Yes. You are a phoenix priestess. You are part of an ancient tribe that worshipped the legendary bird, and due to their loyalty, it's said a phoenix blessed the members so that all members and their descendants will have its powers. They have existed for a very long time. Even older than me by a semi-large margin. Eclair stayed silent as she processed everything she was told. Phoenix priestess. The term resonated with her as she felt something within her stir in acknowledgement and excitement. She was not sure. However, something also seems to click in her mind. Now it all makes sense. Eclair gulped. Why I stayed the same throughout the years but everything else changed. Naruto gave her gentle squeeze which caused her to look up to his gaze. A gaze that was very comforting and held understanding. You have been alive for a very long time, haven't you? He asked softly. Eclair gave a slow nod as she bit her lip. I have been so alone for such a long time. I thought it would be better if I closed my heart, I could lessen the pain, but all that did was make me feel even more empty inside. Until you met Mammon and Katya? Naruto asked. Eclair smiled as she smiled. Momon was the first friend I made in a long time. He kept me safe and protected something important to me. We found Katya a bit after that. She wanted to go out and see the world, and she knew more about the world at the time than I did. From then now, we just became inseparable. I owe those two a lot. Naruto nodded. I know what that's like. The emptiness, the loneliness. It can overwhelm you and could drive most insane. Eclair looked at him with a frown. And once you've been into that abyss, you never really get out. A part of it always lingers with you. She followed up. Naruto nodded. But so long as we follow our light, we can get through anything we find in the darkness. Eclair as she thought about her friends and now her extended family with Fairy Tail. Family. She never thought about having one in so long, but now realized she has one. It was such a warm feeling. It felt so comforting. She looked at her partner again. Is there something else you want to tell me? Do you know anything about my past or my birth parents and family? Naruto stared as his eyes seemed to become blank and glossy, which worried Eclair for a bit until after a moment of silence he answered. There is much to discuss, but let's put a pin on this conversation for another time. It's best we keep this for a more private place to speak with. Eclair frowned. She knew Naruto was hiding something, but he did answer some of her questions and he did agree to speak again. This was a chance she could not skip out on. Plus, he was right, maybe it was best to leave such serious talks for later and enjoy the celebrations. Naruto Clone 5. Naruto hummed a cheerful tune all the while his dance partner tried to burn holes into his head. Now how long do you plan to glare at me? Naruto jokes. Until you melt away. Grandini retorted as she continued her death glare. Naruto rolled his eyes. Must you be so cruel? I have done nothing to warrant such animosity from you. All you have done since I have come back is tease and embarrass me. The Sky Queen hissed. Naruto rolled his eyes. Oh come now. You have been teased far worse than this. Plus you should know when Anna and Irene noticed anyone interested in me, they immediately began to tease that person and myself. This is nothing new. The only reason I didn't do it earlier when we met in your mindscape, was because I wasn't really thinking about it, plus it was the first time we've seen each other in years or centuries in my case. He reasoned. The blonde then gave her a rather mischievous smirk. Plus if I recall, you were the one nuzzling me. Grandini was boiling red in anger and embarrassment. I really hate you. Naruto smirked. Same here Gran. The two continued their amused, angered stare-down before Naruto gave a sigh as he gave Grandini a more calming gaze. All kidding aside, I am glad to have you back, Gran. I am glad to have all of you back. Grandini sighed as she laid her head onto Naruto's shoulder. I feel the same, Naruto. And soon the others will as well, Naruto said in a resolute tone. Grandini looked at Naruto in suspicion. What are you hiding? Naruto gave her a smirk. It's a secret surprise. I promise it's nothing bad. Is there anything bad you have yet to tell us? Naruto tilted his head in thought. A possible theory I have been thinking about for a long time. But I will save it for another. This is a time to enjoy yourselves. Grandini stared at Naruto in suspicion but decided to drop the topic for now. Better to enjoy the night of peace. They can focus on their adversaries afterward. Naruto Clone 6. Irene hummed as she saw another clone with the Sky Queen. I see, Grandini, and you are reconciling very easily. She always was a marshmallow under her rough exterior. One could argue that Kagura is the same, Naruto replied. Nah. She's more of a minor tsundere if anything, but they are all sweet girls. Kagura. Sela. Grandini. They are all good girls for you. I appreciate the help. I really do. Just let me do it at my own pace. Irene smiled softly at her husband. I know. You may be teasing and flirting, but I know it's just to help ease them in. Never thought I would ever be in a position like this again, Naruto mumbled in amusement. On the plus side, you're actually aware of your growing harem. Irene teased. Naruto rolled her eyes. Oh come on, how was I supposed to know that so many women would have feelings for me? Especially since back then, I didn't have much to offer. Your bed skills beg to differ. Irene flirted with a very coy smile. Naruto deadpanned his wife. Sex skills aside and my reputation as a warrior aside, I just didn't understand what attracted everyone. The Dragon Queen gave a gentle and sincere smile to her husband. Your undying loyalty. Your desire to protect those close to you. Your big heart can have love for so many people. And we all saw how much of a loving father and husband you can be. Naruto smiled softly at his wife. Thank you. Just really thank you. Irene rested her head on his shoulder. And you never need to always say thank you. Still I appreciate everything everyone has done for me. To have this second chance. Irene nodded. Yes, second chances. She turned to see Urza dancing with Jello. She's grown up so much without us. Naruto nodded. Yes, she has. But she is and always will be our daughter. She can always need a guiding hand and we'll be there to offer it. I just hope she doesn't make us grandparents too soon or late. Considering our ages, that seems normal in comparison. Irene raised an eyebrow. Are you calling me and Anna old? And there is no one else I would wish to grow old with. Present company aside. Irene giggled. Flatterer. She then gave him a quick peck on the lips as she laid her head on his shoulder again. Thank you for coming back to us, Naruto. Naruto smiled as he held Irene tighter. Always Irene. Original Naruto. Anna hummed as she danced with her husband after being apart for centuries. How long has it been since we danced like this? I believe the last time was the ball we attended before the start of the Dragon Civil War. Anna hummed in acknowledgement. Oh, yeah. So odd to have a ball before the war. More than likely it was to get rid of pre-war jitters. That feels like such a lifetime ago, Anna said softly. I understand that feeling all too well. But in that long lifetime, our little family has grown so much. Anna wraps her arms around Naruto's sides in a tight embrace. Yes, it has, and I would not have it any other way. Though I must say Wendy getting a mini harem was not something I expected, and slightly unsure how to feel about you influencing her in that way. Naruto rolled her eyes as he looked at Anna in amusement. I did not do anything to influence her. She chose to do so on her own. Is that a Hinata trait? Anna asked curiously. Naruto shrugged. Maybe. But I say it's something she has from all three of her mothers. Anna merely rolled her eyes in amusement at that remark. Hinata is her birth mother. You, her surrogate, carried her for 9 months. And finally, Grandini raised her when we were preoccupied with the war. All three gave her something important. Like I told her before. There are no other women I would trust with raising her or being her mother. Anna gave him a sincere smile. Thank you. Regardless of her choices, we will support her all the way, along with the rest of our children, Naruto said. Anna nodded as the two tightened their hold on each other. Yes, we will. All of us. A few hours later. It's been a few hours since the ballroom dancing, as nearly everyone had gone to sleep. Naruto enjoyed a dance with his wives before switching to have a dance with his other daughters and single granddaughter. It was slightly embarrassing for some of the girls, but they got around to enjoying their dance with their grandfather in Meridi's case. Naruto even shared a dance with Hisui and Yukino. Both were rather embarrassed, especially remembering Wendy's words, but Naruto helped them relax and enjoy their dance. We now find Naruto, Anna, Irene, Wendy, Urza, Katya, Lucy, Ultier, and Meridi getting some fresh air from being inside for so long. Lucy, Urza, Ultier, and Meridi were a bit buzzed due to the alcohol they consumed, though thankfully Urza was prevented from drinking too much. Wendy and Katya were forbidden from drinking anything, and Naruto and his wives barely felt anything. It wasn't they couldn't get drunk. They still can get slightly buzzed, though they usually have to enhance their drinks to even get that effect. The blonde king was currently cuddling with his 2 wives under a tree, with the girls watching from afar with smiles on their faces. Anna then stood as she needed to get some air. As he watched his wife under the veil, the moonlight, an idea came to Naruto. It would be the perfect way to end the night of festivities. He begins to whistle a soft melody, one Irene instantly recognized. The redhead smiled. Oh, I love this one, she said happily. The blonde smiled at his Crimson Queen's excitement. Continuing to whistle, Naruto walked up behind Anna and placed his hands on her shoulders. Remember our song, Anna? He whispered into her ear softly. Nobody said anything as he continued, only this time his voice was soft and kind, unlike anything they had heard from the King of Dragons. I'll swim and sail on savage seas, with ne'er a fear of drowning. And gladly ride the waves of life, if you will marry me, Tilda. He sang softly as he raised a hand and pressed the back of his fingertips to her cheek and softly rubbed them across one another. No scorching sun, nor freezing cold will. He continued to sing only to stop as Irene walks up to the two and takes Anna's other side and boldly exclaiming, "Will stop me on my journey," she says. Naruto smiles before turning to his second wife and continues, his voice still holding the tenderness it had when he first started. "If you will promise me your heart," he sings as he gently grasps her hand in his own, the others watching in silence as he waits for her to begin singing, as her part was right after his own, and love. He urges her softly. However, when Anna stays silent, Naruto frowns sadly. She had forgotten their marital song and dance after all. He can't really blame her though. It took him years to even remember the lyrics. So he had no right to judge, but it stung his heart that she forgot their song. The one the three of them created to show their unbreakable bond. However, as he goes to turn away, Anna's voice gently begins to sing, "And love me for eternity." Her voice instantly making him perk up in excitement and joy, something the group, except possibly Wendy, hadn't seen before, and, My dearest one, my darling dear, your mighty words astound me. But I've no need of mighty deeds when I feel your arms around me. She says as she raises her arm up, which he mimics, where the group watched as they placed their forearms together, with Irene taking Naruto's other forearm before they suddenly, much to the surprise of everyone watching, began to actually dance. Naruto's voice held a tone of joy and laughter in it as he began to kick his legs in time with Anna's and Irene's. But I would bring you rings of gold, I'd even sing you poetry. Anna and Irene chortled in joy. Oh, would you? She asked happily. And I would keep you from all harm if you would stay here beside me. He sang out excitedly. Anna had placed her back against Naruto's chest and held her hands across her chest while holding her husband's left hand, and Irene held Naruto's right hand as they seemed to bounce side to side. I have no use for rings of gold. I care not for your poetry. I only want your hand to hold. She sang as Naruto began to spin around with her in his arms. Naruto's grin of joy was very noticeable now as he sang, I only want you near me. He proclaimed proudly. However, the two suddenly began to sing together at a much faster speed, to the shock of the others of the group. To love, to kiss, to sweetly hold. They called out happily while Urza begins dancing in joy as she cries out, hey! With a large smile on her face, for the dancing and the dreaming. They sing while Urza grabs Wendy's and Katya's hands and Altair grabs Meridy's as the two groups begin to twist around in a dance with a laugh. Come on Wendy-chan. Meredy-chan. She cheers out happily. While this happens, Naruto, Irene, and Anna continue singing, ignoring the interruptions as their joy wraps them up and occupies them. Through all life's sorrows and delights, I'll keep your love inside me. They call out together as this time Urza begins to sing with them, though she continues to dance with Wendy in her arms. I'll swim and sail on savage seas, with ne'er a fear of drowning. And gladly ride the waves of life if you will marry me. Naruto, Irene, and Anna finish as Naruto hoists his wives up into the air and spins her around happily. Calming down, Naruto sets his wife down with a look of satisfaction in his eyes and a smile of enjoyment on his face. I thought I'd have to die before we'd have that dance again. Or at least the closet thing for death for me anyway. He said softly. Anna and Irene gave a chortle. Oh, there's no need for such drastic measures, Naruto. She told him with a smile of her own. Naruto smiled. For you, my dears. Anything. He tells her softly as he grasps their hands in his own once again. Can I come home, Anna? Irene. He asked them. The two women smiled sincerely as they gave him a kiss on the lips. Silly Naruto, you don't have to ask a silly question. You are already home. With us. You were always welcome to come back anytime. Naruto smiled as he brought his two wives into a tight hug as they equally returned it. Thank you, he whispered. You're welcome, they said in unison. The two then looked up to see their daughters and granddaughter watching the scene with big smiles. And our home has gotten bigger. Naruto turned to see his daughters watching them. He gave them an incline with his head. The girls were unsure, but Anna and Irene nodding told them it was okay. The girls rushed forward to join the group hug. They were truly a happy and whole family once again. Few days later. Man, what a mess this has become. I wished things went back to being easy. Dorenbolt grumbled as he walked near the outskirts of the capital city. Since when has this ever been easy? A familiar voice said. Dorenbolt turned to see Altair, Meredy, Jello, and the rest of the released Oraciones approaching him. The memory mage gave them a dull look. Oh, it's you. Meredy pouted at the attitude Dorenbolt was giving them. Don't act like you're unhappy to see us. You did call us here. Yeah. Dorenbolt nodded as he looked around. Are you sure Naruto is not here? He asked nervously. Everyone shook their heads as they looked amused at the fear Dorenbolt was oozing at the thought of Naruto being close. Relax, I think he's preoccupied with his wives and making sure he doesn't disappear again, Meredy explained. I doubt father is stupid enough to try, Altair said in an amused tone. Already a daddy's girl, Altair. Jello teased. The blue-haired mage was rewarded with a glare from the time mage. Don't test me, she warned with Jello raising his arms in defeat. Meredy giggled. Grandpa can be persuasive. Altair's glare turned to her daughter and the others as they quietly chuckled in amusement. Anyway, what news do you bring? Jello asked as he tried to get the conversation back on track. Just to inform you that the job has been done. The memories of Lahar and the entire council have been reworked. They now think the members of Oracion Cease were offered a deal. If they allowed themselves to become a guild under the council, then they would be allowed their freedom and a full pardon for their crimes. They even think that they allowed the Oracion Cease to join together with Crime Sorcière. As of this point, Crime Sorcière is an official guild and a division of Fairy Tail. The mages all smirked at the devious plan Naruto conducted to get them freed and absolved of their crimes. For a person that has lived a rather reclusive life, Naruto was a rather crafty individual. We also managed to reinstate Ultir and Jelal as wizard saints. Which is a good thing, as we could never get anyone to fill in for your spots. And the king asked for one other person to be considered. That must have taken a lot of work, Sorana said. Doranbolt shook his head in exasperation. Naruto was a godsend for making this plan work. I seriously wonder if there's anything he can't do. Probably minding his own business. Considering this involved his daughter, blood or not, you bet he would get involved, Cobra muttered with Ultir giving him a look. Doranbolt turned to the poison dragon slayer. So Cobra, I know you all plan to head out to gather intel again, but I need to ask you something. You have the best hearing here. Have any interesting information to inform us of? Cobra scoffed. The gates to the hell of the underworld is about to open. Doranbolt looked confused before it hit him. Hell, you mean Tartarus? Cobra nodded. The last of the Balam alliance. Makes sense, they will eventually make a move. Ultir muttered aloud. Anything else to add, Cobra? Jelal asked. I have heard that all of Tartarus are demons from the books of Zerf himself. The tension around the air thickens as the gravity of what their enemy could be capable of. Doranbolt dragged both his hands down his face. We really have a full-scale war coming, he said in a terrified tone. And we will be ready when it comes, Mirajane said in a resolute tone. Ultir and Jelal nodded as they looked at all of their allies around them. Yes, we will be. The two agreed in unison. Days later, in the middle of Magnolia City. They're back, everyone. Welcome home, everyone. Everyone, let us welcome the winners of the GMG with a round of applause. Welcome. Fairy Tail's grand return. We're back, everyone. Natsu exclaimed. Happy cheered. There are so many people. Katya said in awe. I believe that there are many from outside of Magnolia, Momon replied. Yay! We won. Makarov cheered with Asuka on his shoulders cheering loudly. Mira-chan. Look over here. Hi. Mira waved to her many admirers. Man, what a welcome. Listen, marveled. We did win the games after all. And fought a dragon army. That too. Evergreen agreed from Elfman's left. Wow. This is amazing. Lily said. Hey. We're the best. Gajiel boasted. Let's all drink to celebrate. Kana cheered. Easy with the booze, Kana. Laxus lectured. That fight was awesome, Wendy. Your first round was incredible. You were like a ninja, Wendy. Wendy giggled as she waved at her new fans. Thank you everyone for your support. That's right. Bow down to us. Dark exclaimed as Wendy mentally rolled her eyes to her. Good job, Lucy. Thank you, landlady and fisherman. You still need to pay rent. Sigh. Naruto patted her shoulder. If you ever need help, just holler. Lucy nodded in appreciation. Thanks, but I can handle it. As you wish, he replied. Urza. You were amazing at Pandemonium. That battle with Kagura was incredible. You are just as pretty as your mother. Your father is awesome too. Urza gripped the sides of her arms. This is all too embarrassing. Everyone is watching you. Levi joked. Hail the Dragon Slayer King. Hail the King. Naruto groaned. I am not Tomo. Don't shout that. Natsu began to dig into a large bag he brought with him. I got something to show all of you. Tada. In his hands was the crown of the king. The king's crown. How did you get that? Several members of Fairy Tail exclaimed. Natsu quickly shoved the crown in the bag. Whoops. You weren't supposed to see that. Natsu, if you get arrested, we are not helping you. Wendy deadpan. Natsu lifted a large trophy above his head. The proof of our victory. The King's Cup. I still can't believe it, Droy muttered with tears. After ending up in last place for so many years. Jet continued. This still feels like a dream. War unfinished. Hooray! Kiana and Lackey cheered. Lift it higher, Romeo. Natsu ordered as he lifted the young fire mage on his shoulders. Hi. As the mayor of Magnolia, I wish to award you all with a commemorative item. Makarov scratched the back of his head sheepishly. An award. You shouldn't have. Right this way. Behold. The pride of our town. The Fairy Tale Guildhall is completely restored. All the members of Fairy Tale were speechless. Makarov was on the verge of tears. Mayor, you really are. The mayor chuckled. Oh, it wasn't just me. He then turned to the large crowd around them. The citizens of this town in the restoration, along with a bountiful donation from a certain Slayer King. All the members turned to Naruto. The blonde shrugged. What? I said I will back my debts. I thought this could be the start of it. Not including what happened in the capital. I also paid off your debts and of all the members, while also leaving a good deposit for everyone. Don't go crazy with it. Makarov couldn't hold it in anymore and screamed at the top of his lungs. Everyone here is the absolute best. Everyone cheered in unison to the return of Fairy Tale to their home and their former glory from 7 years ago. Naruto turned his attention to something he sensed. He felt a pull and looked down to see Wendy looking at him in confusion. Something wrong? She asked. Naruto shook his head. Nothing important. I just need to get some air, I'll be right back. He quickly disappeared in a black blur. Wendy tilted her head in confusion but shook her head. Her father just wanted to be away from the large crowd for a while. Plus if anything was bothering him, he'll tell them eventually. Unknown to Wendy and the others, a familiar black creature was watching the festivities from afar. Kiki hee 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 hee. The black imp cackled as jumped away. Deep in the forest of Magnolia. Mavis floated above the forests of Magnolia searching for the person she sensed. Someone she had not felt in some time. Soon she found who she was looking for in a clearing surrounded by a black ring where the grass was dried up and dead. So I was right, you were watching the GMG. Zerf. I neither see nor hear you, but I can feel your presence, my beloved Mavis. 7 years ago you were near me. I was near you 7 years ago. Have you chosen the place you wish to die? I have indeed chosen the place of my death. Zerf looked up in the air. For 400 years I have watched the beginning and end of many eras. They always begin and end the same. Prosperity, then envy, then anger, then hatred, then suffering, then war, then death, and then there's anger once more as the cycle begins anew. Whether it was through wars or by Naruto's hands. It always ended the same way. I had hoped that humanity would change, but they simply cling on to the same natures. Zerf frowned as he looked down. Humanity will always continue to make the same mistakes. The Black Mage concluded in a dark tone. There are those that continue to live through those mistakes and strive to make this world, Mavis replied. Zerf snorted in dark amusement as he turned to the spot he felt Mavis was standing in. Oh come on, those idealists are some of the worst. They lie to themselves and to the people around them. They say sweet words to wow the crowd, but even they don't believe them as the pressure is placed on them to make good on their promise. And when they crack it all comes falling down around them. Naruto is a prime example of that. Mavis frowned. So you will no longer wait. Zerf nodded. Yes, I have made my decision. If the world, no this universe, perhaps even this reality itself rejects me, then I shall reject everything about it and everyone who lives in it. Fairy Tale and to an extent Fishy Knee accept this world as it is and the flaws that come with it. Mavis countered. This is my gift to no one. A new world shall be born from the old world's destruction. Free of humanity's hypocrisy. Mavis looked sadly at her old lover. I assume that there will be a war. Zerf gave her a cold glare as his eyes glowed a dull red as the forest around him died. No, not exactly. This will be a one-sided annihilation. Not a single being will be spared from my slaughter. Mavis gave an equally fierce glare in return. I swear that I, Fairy Tale, and Naruto will stop you. It's you that will be annihilated. Alright, are you two done declaring war? A voice suddenly spoke. The two were jolted from the one-sided stare-down as a familiar Dragon King walked forward to them. Fishy Knee? Mavis asked with some hesitation. Zerf gave the blonde king a nostalgic smile. Hello, Naruto. It's been a long time. Naruto nodded. Indeed, it has been. Old friend. Are you not going to try and kill me? Have you lost your anger towards me? Zerf teased. Naruto felt a vein pop on his head. Zerf, I was mad at you for resurrecting your brother as a demon. Naruto glared at the black mage. I was angry that you made it that if he kills you, he goes with you. Naruto's whisker marks became darker and more defined as his pupils glowed a deep blue. I was pissed at you when you turned me into a monster and did nothing to stop me during my massacre. I was furious to hear that you seduced my sister's heart. Naruto's growl was inhumane at this point as his eyes glowed white. But he finally sighed to calm himself down as his features returned to normal. He glared at the mage once more. Calling me angry at you would be a huge understatement. Trying to kill you now would be redundant, and this is not the time or place for that. Zerf chuckled in amusement. Despite what you believe, Naruto. I am glad to see you like this again. I prefer you like than your rather reclusive self. I watched your battle with Gadora. I must say I have not been entertained in a long time. I am sure the other individuals that watched your battle will be interested in Fury again. Naruto frowned. And they are? He asked, but Zerf shrugged. Now why would I spoil it for you? Naruto sighed as he decided to see if he could have one question answered. Then tell me one thing. The blonde finally said. What's that? Zerf asked. Naruto glared at the immortal mage. Who cursed you? Mavis looked confused by the question. Everyone that heard the legend of Zerf would know the answer. Zerf looked amused. You should know about that. Ancestral. Naruto rolled his eyes. That is what you say. That's what the history books say. But I have lived long enough to know the truth. There is no god with that name. That is an alias that the individual used to hide their identity. The entity gave the people of Mildian that false name to worship him under and to hide his true identity. Mavis looked completely shocked by this revelation as it basically changes aspects about history that have been known for over 400 years. Naruto then spoke up again. I once asked the primordials why they didn't lift your curse, but they said they were unable to. That should be impossible as the primordial dragon gods are the peak of power in this reality. The fact they failed would mean that it was another primordial who cursed you. Or at least something just as powerful if they could match the 4 great primordials of my pantheon. Zerf chuckled in amusement as he gave Naruto a slow clap. So you figured that out. Well, I must commend you, Naruto. You are the first to figure it out. The black mage gave the king a humorless smile. Then you must be wondering who did this. I will give you a hint. It's someone that you are unexpectedly close to. He was once a member of your pantheon before he was banished for his sins and seemingly killed. But his spirit lived on. He has been here all this time collecting more and more power. His resurrection is inevitable. Naruto frowned. Who is Zerf talking about? As far as he recalled there have only been 3 banishments in his pantheon. One was Malefor, the father of the 4th dragon king Spyro. The other was Sketman. But neither would be strong enough to curse Zerf like this, especially prevent the primordials from lifting the curse. The only other option would be. Naruto froze. He recalled what Zerf said. They had a connection. How could they not? Naruto carries the will of one of his sons. One of a pair that fought and defeated their father after his sins on early dragon kind and humanity could not be forgiven. His body was turned into dust and sent into the 4 corners of the universe. How could he still be alive? Mavis was shocked to see her brother's face turn a sickly pale white as he began to shake in unmistakable fear. Just what kind of being could make the black dragon of the apocalypse? It can't be him. No, he can't be coming back. Naruto denied vehemently. He can't be coming back. That would be worse than any of the worst-case scenarios that he had plotted out. Were things spiraling so much out of control without him controlling? Zerf looked at Naruto in sympathy. I don't blame you for your fear. I was just as terrified. Then again, most living beings are born with the instinct to fear this being. Even the gods fear him. You can't let him return, Zerf. If he truly comes back, it will be the end of everything. Zerf gave him a sad frown. I am afraid I cannot do much. He is using my body as his messenger for a lack of a better term. I can't control or stop his influence or that of the curse he placed on me that has warped my mind, morales, and sanity. He is in complete control of me. He lets speak my mind and move of my own accord, but no deity is able to kill me or track me. Zerf gave him a tired smirk. He doesn't see you as a weakling though. He finds you amusing. He wants to play this game of ours for a bit longer. He wishes for you to get stronger. Much stronger. And when you have the power we will face each other. Zerf then turned away to make his departure. With that, I will take my leave, Naruto. Train my brother well, and the others. They will need you for what is to come. One last warning. My master's other son will rise soon as well. And he will come after you. The one who holds the will of the younger brother. Good luck, Naruto. With that, the black mage disappeared into a black portal. Naruto groaned loudly as he facepalmed and dragged his hands down his face. Fucking damn it. This is worse than I thought. Mavis looked concerned as she had never seen Naruto worried, scared about facing someone. Fishy knee, what was that about? Naruto sighed deeply as he looked at his sister. Not now, Mavis. I will tell you and the others about this another time, I swear, but this is not the time yet. So let's keep this talk a secret. He promised. Mavis frowned. She really wanted to know what that conversation was about, but she knew that everyone was entitled to their secrets. Plus she knew this would come out eventually. Alright. She finally relented. Let's head back. Though she really hoped he came clean about ever before things went too far off the rails. Unknown location. A creature's eye briefly opened as it took its surroundings in. A bright orange glow filled his gaze. An incredible heat covered his entire body. It felt as if he was beneath the very crust of the earth, but the heat did little to him. He felt a pulse of power. Two individuals had fought against one another. Mere ants to him. Rarely would he pay such battles any type of attention, regardless if they were dragons. However, one of the combatants piqued his interest. To be more precise, the power he was emitting. It had traces of his power. The power of his traitorous little brother. To have the power of his brother, that would mean it was one of his brother's legacies. The so-called Dragon Kings. A false king of the highest degree. None of those kings that came after his brother has matched his power, his ferocity, or his majesty. They were frauds. Complete jokers to the name of the Dragon King. This current one was no different. Calling himself the Apocalypse Dragon. Ha! That hatchling knew nothing of true Armageddon. The fact that this dragon was a former human was even more insulting. Those pathetic, squishy insects were good for nothing except for food and target practice. For a pathetic former human to claim his brother's title was infuriating. No matter, the time of his awakening was fast approaching. Soon he will rise and take this planet from his brother's legacy and make it rightfully his. He will usher in a new era. And when he has gained enough power he will destroy the primordials and take their power before he goes to the very source of all power. The source of all power in this universe. The source of all magic. As his eyes began to close again as the dark mass sank back into the molten river, one last thought passed before the creature's mind. Everything will shatter from my awakening as I bring forth Armageddon to the land.